Hello everyone, my name is Stoffa and this is the video of my attempt of hardcore nuzlocking Radical Red. If you don't know what a nuzlocke is, I'll quickly go over the rules here. And they'll always be on the right hand side in case you ever forget. But whenever a Pokemon faints, it will be permanently dead. We're only allowed to catch the first Pokemon we encounter on each new route. And for the sake of this video, we'll be counting static encounters as extra encounters. That includes legendaries, although since we're doing a randomizer, they most likely won't be legendaries. We aren't allowed to use any items in the battles, and set mode has to be enabled, which means we can't get a free swap in whenever a Pokemon faints. Although these rules are already enforced by the game. Here you see me put in 2 cheat codes, which gives us some random care packages with some helpful items throughout our journey, and also some rare candies which we can use. And that brings us to our last rule, which is also, of course, enforced by the game, which is level caps. And the level cap will vary depending on where we are in the game, but will always be that of the next boss's fight's strongest Pokemon, which is usually the gym leaders, such as Misty's Starmie, and then that will increase after we beat that and we defeat that gym leader. And since we're doing a randomizer, let's check out our starters. So we got a Statler, we got a Typhlosion and a Goomy. Well, these are all very interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and go with Typhlosion since I think it's the coolest out of all of them. And I'm gonna go ahead and name it Sweden here. I think we're gonna have a little bit of a country theme when it comes to naming all of our Pokemon. We then gotta take on our rival here, Fart, who has a Statler. This is no match for Sweden, who easily just clicks Ember 3 times and takes out Fart's Statler. After that, we head straight to the Pokemon to pick up the Professor's Parcel and also do a challenge battle where we have to defeat 6 level 100 ninjas. The fight is very easy if you know what you're doing. And as a reward, we get a Pokeveil, which allows us to heal our party when we're out on our journey so that we don't have to run back and forth to the Pokemon Center. Just a very convenient item here. Since we now have access to Pokeballs, we can get our first encounter. And on Route 1, we encounter a Lombre. And since Ludicolo has a little sombrero hat, I'm going to go ahead and call him Mexico. I think it's a great first encounter. Ludicolo is one of my favorite Pokemon, and I think he'll be very useful for the first 2 gyms. There's a small patch of grass in Viridian City, which allows us to run around and get an encounter there. We run into a Sligo, which is another amazing encounter. We catch it and name it Denmark. This is a great addition to the team. Right after that, we head on over to Route 22 to fight our rival. Again, but before we're able to do that, we encounter a Pansear, another fire type with an amazing ability and Sage Power once it evolves into a Simisear. We quickly catch it and name it Norway. With our new team member, I think we're ready to take on Fart once again. He's only got 2 Pokemon, so I think we have a pretty big advantage. We start out with Sweden, who is now level 15, which is the level cap before Brock. He 2-shots the Glissapaw with 2 Embers, and then Statler comes in, who suffers the same fate. In Viridian Forest, we have to fight Brendan. Yeah, there are some random rival fights from other games in this game, just to make it a little harder, and I find that very cool. He starts off with a Corphish, so we have to swap out to Mexico, who defeats Corphish with an Absorb. Brendan then sends out his Trico, who Mexico can easily deal with using Aurora Beam. In Viridian Forest, we catch a Vikavolt, we name it Germany, then we make our way to Pewter City, where we're able to pick up an egg. We catch a Spupa in the grass in Pewter City, a Bibarel on Route 2, and our egg finally hatches into a Trumbeak. And the Bibarel is going to be a very useful Pokemon from here on out. Before we're able to take on Brock, we have to fight the Johto leader Faulkner and his flying type Pokemon. He's only got 3, so surely this will be an easy fight, right? Faulkner starts off with Rufflet, and we get a very lucky turn 1 burn, but that triggers his Berry Juice, and he heals up a little bit. We keep on spamming Ember as he tries to heal, but if we just keep on spamming, eventually he just goes down. Out next is Emolga, and Ember does very little damage, but a crit Shockwave brings me down to very low health and triggers my Oranberry. But we're very persistent and keep on using Ember to take down the Emolga eventually. Faulkner's last Pokemon is Corvisquire, and this thing is terrifying. So I'll swap Sweden out to Germany as he sets up a Hone Claws. My only good damaging move is Bite, so I click it, but it doesn't really do a lot of damage. This is looking really rough as Corvisquire sets up another Hone Claws. Corvisquire keeps using Pluck to eat my berries and regain health, and Vikavolt's HP is very low, and this isn't a Pokemon I want to lose, so I swap in Norway. Corvisquire then plucks and then uses Rock Smash, taking out Norway, and that's our first death. Sag. Norway's sacrifice wasn't in vain though. It allows Belgium, the Bibarel, to come in on a clean swap in, use a couple of headbutts, and then finally take out the Corvisquire, earning us the victory. Taking down Falconer allows us to fight Brock, which is exactly what we're doing. Brock leads with a lowland Geodude as Mexico takes a crit Spark and we use Astonish to break it sturdy. We then finish it off with a Bubble, then out comes Archon, expecting a flying move. We swap into Denmark, who's very bulky, but sadly he does get his berry stolen. We use a Bubble, but it regens its health using its berry juice, and it deals a lot of damage with Rock Tomb. So we swap out to Bibarel, who can easily deal with Archon using Aqua Jet. This makes Vulpix come out, who has Hidden Power Grass, so we swap out to Sweden, who eats the move, and then with ease proceeds to take out Vulpix. Brock's last Pokemon is an Onix, so we swap to Bibarel once again, who is able to take out Onix with a couple of Aqua Jets, winning us the badge. With Brock defeated, we get access to Rock Tomb and also Flash outside of battle onto Misty. After Brock, we head on over to Route 3, where we encounter a Dreadnought. We catch it and name it Lavia. Inside the Poké Center on Route 4, there's a man selling a Magikarp for $500. We go ahead and make the deal, and the Magikarp turns out to be a Deontay, which is a very cool Pokemon I've never used before. We go ahead and name it Franz. We enter Mount Moon and find a Hisuian Voltorb, catch it and name it the Netherlands, although it doesn't fit, so Netherland will have to do. Nonetheless, a great encounter. We have a fight with a Team Rocket admin in Mount Moon, and Bibarel is really putting in a lot of work, taking out 2 of the admin's Pokemon, but is just shy of knocking out his Mariana, and he set up 1 too many howls, and therefore Bibarel falls. That's our second death, and a really devastating one. Makes me very sad. Luckily, we have Sweden, who can just finish off the Mariana using a quick attack. On Route 4, we encounter a Zeraora, which is another legendary Pokemon, and this thing will be very useful for Misty, I bet. There's a house with a lady in Cerulean City who offers us an egg, which of course we go to pick up. There is also another challenge battle in Cerulean City with another rental team, which is a little harder than the last one, but of course not for us. The battle requires you to take advantage of Fletchling and its Gale Wings ability. Winning this battle lets us tutor level up moves, which is a very great feature to have access to. Our egg then hatches into a Beldum, and boy do I love Metagross. We already have access to so many amazing Pokemon. We go ahead and name it Spain. Now we're going to take on Misty. We lead with Zeraora, who has learned Fake Out and is able to do a little bit of damage to the Frogadier, and then is able to take it out with just a Volt Switch. And because we use Volt Switch, we have to swap out. So we go into Germany because it can fare pretty decently and anything Misty can throw at us. She sends out Float Soul as we use Spark, but then she switches into Lantern, who has Volt Absorb, and our move does nothing. So we swap out to Lavia, the Dreadnought, on the skull, and sadly get burned. We start clicking Headbutt, but because we're burned, it doesn't really do a lot of damage. But we do get a lucky couple of flinches, and for some reason I completely forget that this thing has an electric move, and Dreadnought goes down to a Parabolic Charge. That's our third death. Dreadnought does not die in vain. Mexico, the Ludicolo, can come out and we'll just keep on clicking Mega Drain on all of Misty's remaining Pokemon. Some take a little longer to take down, but they all eventually fall to the power of my Mega Drain, winning us the second gym badge. With Misty down, we can use Cut outside of battle, and we also get a great TM in Flip Turn. Defeating Misty increases our level cap to level 34, which makes this next rival battle kind of a joke. We lead with Zeraora, who uses Fake Out, but because Corlia had Trace, it has now copied my Volt Absorb ability, and our electric moves are useless, so I gotta swap into Spain, the Metang. Spain is then tasked with taking out the rest of Fart's Pokemon, so we take down the Staravia, then the Rockruff, and last but not least, his Ivysaur. On Route 24, we catch a Licky Licky. Darmanitan is our encounter on Route 25. We catch it and name it Portugal. Our next major battle is against Bugsy, who uses bug types. Clever, I know. There's permanent rain here, so fire types aren't too strong. So we go and lead with Toucan, who's able to deal with the lead Ariados. Next up, Bugsy sends out his Ledian, who's part fighting type in this game instead of flying. We get hit by an Iron Fist boosted Ice Punch, taking us down to very low HP. Drill Peck is able to break the Leiden's Focus Sash though. We swap into Metang, who's able to finish off the Ledian with a Bullet Punch. This makes Scissor come out, and I'm thinking there's a U-turn coming, so I swap into Deontay, expecting Scyther to come out after the U-turn, but instead we get hit with an Aerial Ace, Ice, which doesn't do a lot of damage. So we swap into Sweden, who's able to eat the incoming Bullet Punch. We use one Ember, and then Scissor uses U-turn, and in comes the Scyther, and this thing is scary. We quickly swap back out to Deontay. Scyther begins to Swords Dance as we just smackdown, but because Scyther is holding a Charty Berry, our rock move doesn't do a lot of damage. Luckily, we were able to live a boosted Brick Break, so we take it out the next turn. Now Bugsy's only got one Pokemon left, his Scizor, so we send out Sweden, who we start spamming Ember with, as Scizor just spam heals. We're hoping for either a crit or a burn, which basically just wins up the fight. We get a lucky burn, and now this Scizor is doomed. He tries to heal a little more, but there's nothing left to do as Scizor goes down, and we finally defeat Bugsy. After defeating Bugsy, we head into a house where there's a Clefairy. We talk to the Clefairy, but it turns out it's not a Pokemon, it's a human named Bill, who's been turned into a Pokemon. We help him turn back into a human, and as a thanks, he gives us a ticket to the SSN. Our goal now is to head to Vermilion City to fight Lieutenant Surge, but before that we pick up a couple of encounters, and on Route 5 we catch a Mimikyu with a really good ability in disguise. Inside the daycare on Route 5, you're able to fight an old man who claims to be an old trainer who just wants to fight again. You get to run a full team of Hisuian Pokemon, but the battle isn't that interesting, so I'm not going to be showing it. Defeating this trainer gets you a really cool reward, an Eevee. Well, it would be an Eevee if you weren't doing a randomizer. We check out the PC to see what our Eevee is, and we get a Urshifu, a fighting water type who's an absolute beast of a Pokemon. On Route 6, we encounter a Stakataka, which is an absolute defensive powerhouse. This thing is super hard to catch, but eventually we get it, and name it Russia. Although, that might not be the best name. We then make it to Vermilion City, where we're able to pick up our third egg. Before we board the SSN, we get access to a couple of encounters. A Tentacool on Route 11, a Beware in the depth of Diglett Cave. We head back to Vermilion, where we've picked up a good rod, and therefore we can fish here. We ship up a Civian form of Milotic. Civian forms are special regional forms this game has added. Think Alolan or Galarian forms. A select few Pokemon get some type or stat changes, and I think this one's my favorite one. We have access to a small patch of water where we're able to fish before heading on to the SSN, and there we encounter Blacephalon. We're getting all their Ultra Beasts, it feels. Another amazing and hard-hitting encounter though. And before we know it, our egg hatches into an Abra. We name it Luxembourg. It's now time for a rematch with Brendan aboard the SSN, and we've only brought one Pokemon for this, our Urshifu. I want to show you guys the absolute strength and power of this Pokemon, so I'm not even going to commentate or tell you guys what's going on. You guys just sit back and watch. Yeah, this might have been stupid and pretty risky. If our Urshifu went down here, we would have wiped, but I had faith. With Brendan defeated, we can now head up to the captain's room, rub his shoulders, and get the HM for cut. We can now fight Lieutenant Surge, which is exactly what we're going to do. We'll lead with Mexico, as the electric gym leader starts with Pinchurin to set up his electric train. We get to Pinchurin super low with a fake out Mega Drain. Since it's part water type in this game, our grass moves deal a lot of damage. He then proceeds to use Volt Switch and switches into Vikavolt, but luckily we came prepared with Deontay, who can eat up the incoming Bug Buzz. We've equipped Deontay with a Rindo Berry because this Vikavolt carries Energy Ball, so the AI doesn't see Energy Ball as dealing a lot of damage, so it's going to keep on using Bug Buzz, which we resist. We set up a Stealth Rock and then get a very lucky Ancient Power Boost. We eat our Rindo Berry as Vikavolt uses Energy Ball, but then Vikavolt falls to an Ancient Power. Pinchurin comes back out to set up Electric Train once again, but it's so low that we can afford to stay in with Deontay just to finish it off with another Ancient Power. Out comes the Alolan Raichu, who takes a little bit of damage from the Stealth Rock, and this thing is definitely faster than me, so I gotta swap into USA the Licky Licky, who's quite bulky. As Alolan Raichu uses a Nasty Plot, we just pray that we can live whatever it sends our way, which luckily we do. We eat its Volt Switch as Manectric comes out, so we swap into Slovenia the Milotic, who's a fairy ground type in this game, who has the ability competitive, which will get triggered when Lieutenant Surge's Manectric Mega Evolves into Mega Manectric. We've also equipped Milotic with a Rindo Berry to be able to take minimum damage from Manetric's Hidden Power Grass, but we just one-shot the Manectric with a Mud Slap. Raichu comes back out, but without Electric Train, this thing is not that scary. We eat the Psyshock, and then we're able to take out Raichu with another Mud Slap. Lieutenant Surge's last Pokemon is Bolton, so we go into Beware, who has the Fluffy ability. This allows Beware to take all of Bolton's physical moves with ease, and then take down this Electric Dog with just 2 Bulldozers, winning us the 3rd gym badge. Defeating Lieutenant Surge grants us the Thunder Badge and the TM for Volt Switch, and we can get a bunch more encounters before we fight Erica. Now that we're done with Surge, we can head on over to Celadon City, and on Route 9 we encounter a Frogadier, we catch it, and emit Kracia. We are now bound for Celadon and our 4th gym badge, and on Route 10 we encounter a Dupiter. In Rock Tunnel we encounter a Parasect, which normally isn't the best Pokemon, but in this game it's been given one of the best moves in Sappy Seed, making this, in my opinion, one of the greatest non-legendary Pokemon we can get. Sappy Seed is a physical grass move with 100% accuracy, which always sets up Leech Seed, so it's like using Leech Seed, but you also get a good damaging move on top of it. Parasect is one of few Pokemon that also get access to Spore, so pair this with Sappy Seed and you get yourself a monster. Route 8 grants us a Gigalith, which will help us with weather control, because Gigalith gets access to the ability Sandstream, and it's also super physically bulky. Just before Celadon, we catch ourselves an Arrokuda on Route 7, a really fast and hard-hitting water type. Inside one of the buildings in Celadon, there's a couple of goodies waiting for us. A person who could give us a special Pikachu in exchange for a yellow shard, but sadly we don't have any space at the moment. There's a scientist who tells us he can revive one of our fossils. Usually the Helix fossil means we'll get an Ammonite, but I don't think that's going to be the case this time. We'll have to come back later though. Hopefully I don't forget. I put one of my Pokemon in the PC, freeing up a slot, so I go ahead and get one of those special Pikachus. And it turns out to be a Kingler. Not bad at all. I then talk to the old man who's offering up starter eggs for red, blue, and green shards. Obviously they won't hatch into starter Pokemon, but I go ahead and get a bunch of them. And here's what they all hatched into. A Galarian Corsola, a Lileep, a Roly-Poly, a Mime Jr., a Panpour and a Rhydon, a Swatlot, Throw, and a Floette, a Cubfu, which would normally fall under Species Clause, but there's 2 versions of Urshifu, so I'm deciding to keep it. A Machamp and a Alolan Vulpix. A Quilava, which would normally also fall under Species Clause, but I think there's a way for us to turn this into an Hisuian Typhlosion, so I'm keeping it for that, and in case there isn't, I just won't use it or get rid of it. We get a Sandslash. I know what you're all thinking, Stuffa, you just got a bunch of free encounters. Well, that's the beauty of a Nuzlocke. It's a fan-made set of rules, you can change things to your own liking. If you don't like something, you can just go ahead and change it. No one can tell you it's wrong. Okay, back to our gym challenges. Our goal is to fight Erica, but before we do that, I know we can fight Whitney, the normal type gym leader from Johto, who is the cause of many children being fearful of a cow using rollout. Before we prepare for our fight with Whitney, we can get one more encounter, a Drapion on Route 16. With a new team member in Drapion, we make our way over to Whitney. She leads with Wigglytuff, but our Stakataka is so physically bulky, it eats the 4 times effective Drain Punch and takes out the Wigglytuff with an Iron Head. Her next Pokemon is a Miltank, so we go into Italy, the Blacephalon, who's holding an air balloon, making it so that his Miltank cannot touch this at all, and it's forced to swap out. Vigoroth then comes out as we go into another physical wall in Dianzi, who eats the knockoff. To get even bulkier, we use a Reflect, which doubles our physical defense as Vigoroth heals off with Slack Off. From here on out, it's just us spamming with Ancient Power, hoping for an Omni Boost, and once we run out of PP with that, we'll just use Power Gem. Whitney's very persistent on healing her Vigoroth though. Eventually it also falls, and Miltank comes back out, so we go back into Italy. But Misty swaps once again, making her and Didi eat the incoming Fire Blast, putting it in the red. I risk staying in because I know we're never dead to any of Ndidi's moves. Fire Blast can also miss, but we hit it, and we even get a crit. That definitely mattered. For some reason, Whitney then goes into her Miltank, who cannot do any damage to my Blacephalon, even though she still has one more Pokemon in the back. So we start spamming a bunch of Calm Minds, prepare to take out our last 2 Pokemon with a stored power. That's exactly what we do, winning us the battle. As a reward, we get a normal gem and an Eviolite. On to Erica. Erica is, in my opinion, probably the easiest gym leader, except for maybe Brock. She leads with a Rillaboom, who uses a priority Grassy Glide, but Italy can just one-shot the Grass Gorilla with a Flame Burst. As Venusaur comes in, I know this is a Mega Venusaur, and there's probably an Earth Power coming. I'm thinking if maybe Blacephalon can one-shot the Venusaur with the special attack boost, but then I remember that Mega Venusaur gets Thick Fat, so it's actually not weak to fire. We swap into Mr. Mime, who can use a Light Screen, and also somehow dodges a Sleep Powder. I forgot Venusaur carried that. I'm debating whether we should use Encore or not, but I decided to go with Psychic, which does just over 50%, and we even get a lucky special defense drop. but then we get put to sleep with sleep powder. As Erika then swaps into Hisuian Electrode, who carries a Reckless boosted Explosion. But luckily we came prepared with Parasect, who has the ability Damp, nullifying the explosion. We've equipped Parasect with a Yachi Berry, so it's able to live Hidden Power Ice, and then take out Electrode with a Leech Life. Venusaur then comes back out, and I'm predicting a Sludge Bomb, so we go into Metang, who's also holding an Air Balloon. But she swaps into Superior, and we're able to break its Focus Sash with a Zen Headbutt. And we have the perfect counter for this Superior, an Eviolite Sliggoo. Unless we get crit 3 times from a Dragon Pulse, we can just keep on spamming Body Slam. We even get a lucky Paralysis. Eventually Superior does go down, and this brings out Meganium. Meganium is part Fairy in this game, so I know there's a Fairy move coming, so I go into Drapion. We eat the Dazzling Gleam and Giga Drain pretty well, but then we retaliate with Poison Fang, taking out the Grass Dinosaur. Erika sends out her last Pokemon, Mega Venusaur again. I debate on what to swap into, because I don't really know what move is coming, but then I remember that Drapion's only weakness is ground, so I know there's an Earth Power coming, and I decided to swap into Mr. Mime, and even though it's asleep, I believe he can wake up. And oh, that is exactly what happens. Mr. Mime wakes up turn 1 and takes out Venusaur with a Psychic. Winning that battle gets us the Rainbow Badge, which allows us to use Strength outside of battle. We also get Giga Drain, which is a very strong grass move. After Erika, we can head into the building on the right hand side of the game corner. We can walk up to the Cleric, who says that they're selling a bunch of unique Pokemon. So we scroll all the way down and click Toxel. We can also get it in shiny form, so we decide to do that. But because we're doing a randomizer, we're not going to get a Toxel. So we go on and check, and it's a Necrozma. This is a crazy Pokemon, and I'm not sure if we can get the OP form of Necrozma, but that'd be really cool. After that, we head into the actual game corner, where we see a suspicious Rocket member looking at a poster. So we talk to him, and we have to fight him. Destroying him, and we talk to the poster, and it opens up a staircase. After a long time of defeating grunts and making our way through the Rocket hideout, we make it to Giovanni. And I can tell this is where the game gets really difficult, because I had to plan and prepare for a long time for this battle. We lead with Simipour, who has the ability Sage Power, which is basically a special Gorilla Tactics. And we one-shot the Nidoking with Scald. We swap into Typhlosion, who's able to eat the incoming Will-O-Wisp thanks to Flash Fire, and we one-shot the Rotom with that Lava Plume. This next Honchkrow is cheating. It has Super Luck and a Scope Lens, which almost guarantees it getting a critical hit every time it uses a move. But luckily, we have a Deontay who has a monster defense and is able to live even critical hits. We use Deontay to set up a Stealth Rocks and a Reflect, and then we just take out the Honchkrow. Giovanni's Infernape then comes out, so we go into our trusty Urshifu on Infernape setting up a Sword Stance. Luckily, we don't get crit by the close combat, and we're able to take out the Infernape next turn with an Aqua Jet. Giovanni's last Pokemon is definitely his scariest. It's a Mega Kangaskhan. Being +1 in defense here is crucial, because it allows us to live a stab boosted max roll Body Slam from this Mega Kangaskhan, which is why I opted for using Bulk Up instead of something else. We also protect on turn 1 when Kangaskhan uses Fake Out, but instead of a Body Slam, Kangaskhan opts for a Power Up Punch. So we don't even have to worry about a paralysis, and we're able to take it out with a Surging Strikes into Aqua Jet. Beating Giovanni lets us pick up the Sylph Scope, so we can head back to Lavender Town and into the Pokemon Tower. But before we head into the Pokemon Tower, we can find Morty inside of a house in Lavender Town. Morty is the Ghost-type gym leader from Johto, and he's got a very, very strong team. As Morty leads with a Mimikyu, we do the same and mirror him. Of course, our Mimikyu is 2 levels higher. We start off by using a priority Shadow Sneak, breaking the enemy Mimikyu's disguise, as we get hit by a Shadow Claw. The turn after that, we get a very lucky critical hit on our Shadow Sneak, one-shotting the Mimikyu. Morty then goes into Dusknoir, so we have to swap out to Deontay, who's able to take all of Dusknoir's physical attacks pretty well. Deontay comes in on the incoming Shadow Punch and takes it pretty well. We then proceed to use Diamond Storm. Diamond Storm is Deontay's signature move, and it's a really good move. It has a 50% chance of raising the user's defense by 2 stages. Sadly, we don't get it, but it still does a chunk of damage to the enemy Dusknoir. Using another Diamond Storm, we sadly don't get the boost again, and Dusknoir lives on a slither of HP. Deontay's Citrus Berry then gets activated, and we're able to take out the Dusknoir the next turn with a third and final Diamond Storm. I can't believe that after using 3 Diamond Storms with a 50% chance, we didn't get the boost a single time. How unlucky is that? Either way, let's not get hung up on that. After Dusknoir finally goes down, Morty's next Pokemon is Weavile. So we swap into Urshifu, who's honestly the perfect counter for this Weavile, as it takes resisted damage from all of its moves. And even though this Weavile carries Sword Stance, the only thing we really have to worry about is Triple Axle critting a lot. And of course he gets 1 crit. Luckily it wasn't more than that. But then we're able to do a hunk of damage to Weavile with a Power Punch, taking it down to its Focus Sash. The attack boost from Power Punch doesn't really matter here, as Weavile is only at 1 HP and we're able to take it out with a priority Aqua Jet. Morty's Gengar then comes out, so I have to swap into Lickilicky, who has the ability Unnerve, which ignores all stab boosts in case his Gengar sets up with Nasty Plot. And that's exactly what happens. And then Lickilicky gets hit by a Hyper Voice, and that's when I realize, wait a minute. Gengar can't use Hyper Voice. This is Morty's Hisuian Zoroark, and thanks to his Colbur Berry, our knockoff does just about 50%. Luckily, we take it down the turn after with another knockoff, but now we don't really have a good answer for Gengar. But we're gonna have to deal with that later. Morty then sends in his Typhlosion, so we go into our own Typhlosion. It's another mirror matchup. Swede nullifies the enemy's Typhlosion with its Flash Fire ability, and as I go for Scorching Sands, Morty sends out its Gengar. The mind games are on, but obviously Gengar is immune to Scorching Sands because of his Levitate ability, so I swap into Lickilicky, and this is the only viable option, and I'm thinking we have to sack it here, but for some reason Morty swaps out his Gengar again into his Typhlosion, so we just go back into our own Typhlosion. I know that Morty's not going to want to stay in, and he's going to swap back out to his Gengar, as I go for a extrasensory, dealing a lot of damage to the incoming Gengar. Here's where it gets really tough though. Typhlosion doesn't live a crit Sludge Wave that also gets the poison, and Typhlosion isn't really a Pokemon I want to lose. So instead of risking that, I go ahead and go into Lickilicky, sacking it, and I'm thinking that we can revenge kill with Shadow Sneak Mimikyu. Mimikyu does pick up the KO on Gengar with a Shadow Sneak, and Morty's down to his last Pokemon. And that is his Hisuian Typhlosion, and we all already know how this goes, so we go into our own Typhlosion, who's able to pick up the KO eventually with a bunch of Scorching Sands. Defeating Morty grants us a couple of items, but most notably the TM for Shadow Ball, which is a very good and consistent Ghost type move. We then make our way through Pokemon Tower, defeating all the trainers, and pick up a couple of items. But before we can make it to the top floor, we encounter a shiny level Marowak, who starts off the battle with an Omni Boost, but Mimikyu is able to take it down, and that's a mini boss battle, and I've definitely lost Pokemon to this in the past. Sadly, we can't catch this Marowak, so I'm not counting that as our encounter, but we get a Thick Club for defeating it. We do encounter an Emolga, which is honestly not a bad encounter at all. We catch it and name it Mongolia. We then proceed to head to the top floor of the Pokemon Tower, where there's a bunch of Team Rocket guards who's kidnapped Mr. Fuji. We defeat them all and we save him. Mr. Fuji then takes us to his house in Lavender Town. As a thanks for saving him, Mr. Fuji gives us a Pokeflute, which we can use to wake up the sleeping Pokemon that's blocking our path. We make our way down to wake up the sleeping Pokemon, who normally would be a Snorlax, but because this is a randomizer, it's not going to be a Snorlax, and sadly, it's a Boldore. So thanks to Species Clause, we're not able to catch it, but we do go ahead and get its leftovers, which is a very good item. There's another sleeping Snorlax on Route 16, so we just go over there to steal its leftovers, because sadly we can't catch that either, because it's also going to be a Boldore. To continue our adventure, we head to Saffron City to fight Sabrina, which is going to be our 5th gym battle. But before we're able to do that, I noticed that there's a bunch of Team Rocket Grunts here in Saffron again, and I enter the Self Company where there's a bunch of Team Rocket Grunts, and I have to take them all down again. After defeating God knows how many Rocket Grunts, we find our rival who's also hiding here in Self Company. He could have definitely been of some help, but he just wants to fight us again. Either way, his lead Staraptor uses U-turn as we get a free Stealth Rocks up. Azumarill then comes out, so we go into Tentacruel, who takes the liquidation pretty well. I know that he's not going to want to stay in because Azumarill can't really do too much to Tentacruel, so I click Toxic Spikes as he swaps out to Staraptor. So we then swap into Diancie, who takes the Brave Bird extremely well. We then retaliate with Diamond Storm, and this time we do get the defense boost, although it doesn't really matter now. Venusaur then comes out, and this time I came prepared for its Sleep Powder, so we go into Mr. Mime, who's holding a Chesto Berry. And just like last time we fought a Mega Venusaur, Mr. Mime sets up a Light Screen, but I'm thinking back that I should have taught it Safeguard. Mr. Mime does fall asleep again to Venusaur's sleep powder, and I'm doing a mega brain read here, predicting that he's going to swap out, so I swap out first into Simipour. So I'm thinking that this is a free kill with Scald onto Darmanitan, but of course he still has Azumarill alive in the back, so he swaps into that. So we go into Tentacruel, who's always able to deal with the Azumarill, and this time Far has accepted his fate for his Pokemon and doesn't swap out, and Azumarill falls to a Sludge Wave. Far's Electivire then comes out, who's part fighting in this game, and is honestly a very scary Pokemon. But we swap into Volt Absorb Zeraora, who is able to completely nullify the incoming electric type attack. We get a very lucky critical hit Fake Out, and we proceed to take out the Electivire with a close combat, which is also a crit. We're using up all of our crit luck, it seems. But Darmanitan comes back out, so we go straight into Simipour. And I'm debating whether I should use Flip Turn or not in case he swaps out, and that's exactly what happens. So I swap out to Metagross, who's able to resist the incoming Giga Drain, and I risk staying in on a crit Earth Power. Luckily, he doesn't crit, and Metagross lives in Earth Power, and we're able to take out the Venusaur with a Zen Headbutt. That was very risky. I definitely had other options. Fart's last Pokemon comes in, Darmanitan, who doesn't take enough damage from Stealth Rock and lives on the tiniest amount of HP ever. But Metagross is able to finish off with a Bullet Punch. After defeating our rival, he proceeds to talk some bullcrap about something I'm not even paying attention to. We then talk to the guy who, as a thanks for saving all the people, gives us a Pokemon. Normally would be a Lapras, which is a very good Pokemon, especially in this game. But instead of a Lapras, it turns out to be a Flabébé, which, thanks to Dupe's Claws, means we can't use it. But enough mourning, we got an evil organization to take care of. This next battle is no joke. The difficulty level gets increased exponentially. It's a double battle against 2 Team Rocket admins, and it's also a tag battle. So Brendan from the Hoenn games, join us. So since this is a tag battle, we're only allowed to bring 3 Pokemon, and I opt for Milotic, Cradily, and Stakataka. I lead with Milotic, who gets a special attack boost thanks to its competitive ability, as I click Protect on Incineroar's Fake Out, and Brendan's Masquerain is just shy of taking out Gothitelle. We can then take out Incineroar with a super strong Earth Power, as Masquerain then takes out Gothitelle. Only 4 more Pokemon to go. Aegislash and Mawile then comes in, and thanks to Mawile's Intimidate, we get another special attack boost. I'm considering swapping out here because I'm scared of them doubling into Milotic, and it's really not a Pokemon I want to lose. But I decided to stay in and take out Mawile with a +4 Earth Power. I decided to stay in because I know that Aegislash usually King Shields on turn 1, but that's not at all what happens. Masquerain uses a Scald and gets the most clutch burn of all time. Milotic definitely could have gone down to that Iron Head from Aegislash, but thanks to the attack drop from the burn, it does just under 50%. Primarina then comes out, so I have to swap out here because I know there's a water move coming. So I go into Cradily, who has the Storm Drain ability and gets a special attack boost thanks to Primarina using a water Hyper Voice. I've equipped Cradily with a Bawberry Berry, so we never have to worry about dying to Iron Head from Aegislash. I use Bulldoze to get some spread damage, and whatever Masquerain attacks will probably be low enough to get taken down by Bulldoze. Primarina then uses a Dazzling Gleam and gets a massive critical hit on Cradily. And sadly, the only Pokemon we take out is Brendan's Masquerain. A team kill? Please don't report me. Brendan then sends out his Exploud, and I opt for using Protect here on Cradily because I'm thinking that Exploud can probably pick up a KO here. The enemy Aegislash also opts for using Protect, and Exploud uses Surf. But somehow Primarina lives that. I know it's resisted and all, but come on. I really don't want to risk the double protect, so I just decided to swap out to Stakataka here. Swapping in Stakataka here is fine because Primarina should never use a water move, and we also live anything that Aegislash throws at us. Of course, Karma then comes and bites me in the butt as Exploud uses Surf, taking out a big chunk of Stakataka's health. Ironhead does next to nothing, and we've also taken out all the Pokemon on the left side. So now all we gotta do is deal with the Pokemon on the right side, and after Aegislash goes down, there's only one more. Of course, Aegislash wants to stall and uses King Shield, as I take this time to use a Light Screen. Aegislash then finally goes down as Houndoom comes out. I'm thinking that there's a spread move coming, probably Heat Wave, but I've already used Wide Guard last turn, so I decided to swap back out to Milotic, who has a monstrous special defense. That was definitely the right play, as Milotic eats the Scorching Sands and Exploud deals a lot of damage with Focus Miss. We then use Protect on Milotic, as Exploud takes a lot of damage from Heat Wave but then takes out the Houndoom with a Hyper Voice. That was a very tough battle, but luckily we came out unscathed. As a thanks for helping him, Brendan gives us a Trico. Well, normally it would be a Trico, but this time it turns out to be a Vigoroth, which is a very cool Pokemon. But we don't have time for this. We need to have a rematch with the head of Team Rocket, Giovanni. Giovanni leads with Hippowdon that sets up a Stealth Rock as we hit it with a Toxic. We set up our own Stealth Rock to help deal with a Focus Sash Pokemon in the future, as Hippowdon uses Roar and out comes your Shifu. I predict that Hippowdon is going to attack instead of use Roar, so I use a Bulk Up just to be able to take the Earthquake a little bit better. The attack boost from Bulk Up is also super crucial here. Of course not on Hippowdon, as it goes down to a Surging Strikes the following turn. Poltergeist then comes out, and this is a White Herb Shell Smashing Poltergeist, but it doesn't really get a chance to do anything, as that also falls to a Surging Strikes. Setup moves on Pokemon like your Shifu might be just a little too OP. Giovanni then sends out his next Pokemon, which is Kangaskhan, and of course this is a Mega one, so we go ahead and Protect on its Fake Out. With the defense boost, I know that we're never dead to anything Kangaskhan can do, unless it gets a Paralysis Body Slam hacks, which of course happens, but we're able to break through and land a Surging Strikes. Kangaskhan of course lives on the tiniest amount of HP, but if we're able to break through Paralysis one more time, we can finish it off with an Aqua Jet. Giovanni then sends out his Garchomp, so I have to go back into Necrozma, who is pretty defensively bulky. Your Shifu could have probably lived the Rock Slide, but didn't want to risk Paralysis and Flinch, and Necrozma takes it pretty well. But as Garchomp starts setting up Sword Stands, I know that Necrozma's fate has been decided. We're just gonna have to spam Bulldoze and eventually just watch it go down. Every speed drop we get with Bulldoze really makes a difference here, and we can tell it's really crucial. But eventually Necrozma falls to the Earthquake. We salute it. Necrozma's sacrifice was not in vain. It allows your Shifu to come in and finish off Garchomp with a Wicked Blow. Without the countless speed drops there, we would have never been able to outspeed. Bless you, Necrozma. Giovanni's last Pokemon, Excadrill, then comes out, and thanks to the Stealth Rock from earlier breaking its Focus Sash, we can take it out with one hit with Close Combat. We have now defeated Giovanni a second time, and I have a feeling we're not going to see him for quite some time. And as a thanks for defeating Giovanni and taking out all the Team Rocket grunts, the president of the Stealth Company gives us a Master Ball. Sabrina is the next major gym battle, but before we go and fight her, we're able to fight Chuck, who is the Johto fighting type gym leader. Chuck starts off the battle with Hitmontop as we lead with Mimikyu, and thanks to its disguise ability, we're able to live even 2 critical hit triple axles. We're then able to take out a Hitmontop with Play Rough into Shadow Sneak. I'm usually not too worried about the battle against Chuck, as it can be pretty easy, but this time around it felt a lot harder. Anyway, Chuck then sends out his Lucario, so we go into our Metagross. We easily tank both the Meteor Mash and the Close Combat, and thanks to our Citrus Berry, we're able to also regain a little bit of health. Then we take out Lucario with a massive Hammer Arm. Gallade then comes out, and this is probably the Pokemon I was most worried about. So I'll swap into Mr. Mime, who has been carrying us from time and time again. Gallade sets up a Bulk Up, and I miss an opportunity to go for Encore, as I go for Reflect instead. Now we gotta dodge some crits. Gallade has been setting up one too many Bulk Ups, and Mr. Mime is already quite low. We're able to do about 80% with a massive Moonblast, but a Night Slash from Gallade takes us down to a red, activating our Citrus Berry though, which is huge here. Very lucky that we were able to dodge all crits, and Mr. Mime can then take out the Gallade. Chuck then sends out his Sneasler, and I know there's a poison move coming, so I'm going back into my Metagross. And oh boy, Spain is an absolute tank, able to eat up the Sneasler's Close Combat, and they get it down to its Focus Sash with one huge Zen Headbutt. We're then able to take out the Sneasler with a priority Bullet Punch. Chuck then sends out his Breloom, and I want Breloom to put Metagross to sleep with Spore so that he won't use Spore again when we swap into Diancie. He took the bait, so that's exactly what happens. So we're able to get a clean swap in with Diancie. It's not really that clean because we take way more damage than I had anticipated from Focus Punch. I did make sure to equip Diancie with a chest of berry in case Breloom gets cheeky and wants to use another spore, trying to put me to sleep. But he just starts spamming substitute as we go for multiple Moonblast, but eventually we're able to take out the Breloom. Poliwrath then comes in and we have the perfect counter for this. And that Pokemon is Dry Skin, who makes his immune to water moves, Parasect. We also equipped Parasect with a Yache Berry so that we're able to live Poliwrath's Ice Punch, and then we can take it out with a huge Zappy Seed. Thanks to the Leech Seed that our move planted, we're able to regain a little bit of health while also taking out Poliwrath. And that's it. Chuck has been defeated, and as a reward for defeating him, we get the TM for Drain Punch and as well as an Expert Belt. We also get to choose one of the Pokemon behind him, which are normally Clobbopus and Crabrawler, but again, because of that randomizer, we get Magikarp and Cacturne, and I go ahead and pick Magikarp as Gyarados is probably one of the best Nuzlocke Pokemon you can get. With Chuck defeated, we can actually head over to Sabrina and her Psychic types. Sabrina's fight is doubles, which I'm not that big a fan of since I tend to lose Pokemon during that, and she also utilizes the move Trick Room. When Trick Room is active, it basically makes the slowest Pokemon move first, but I've cocktailed up a strategy that doesn't even allow her to set up a Trick Room, and we only have to use 3 Pokemon. So on turn 1, we Wicked Blow the Indeedee, and we Meteor Mash the Atrini, taking them both out in one hit. Sabrina's Pokemon all have natures that lower their speed, so if this Atrini did get Trick Room up, a lot of them would be moving first, which would be a big problem for me. But out next comes Crawdon and Porygon 2, which is perfect here. Expert Belt boosted close combat guarantees the kill on the Porygon 2, and we use a Hammer Arm onto the Crawdon, but because it has a Focus Sash, it sadly lives on just 1 HP. Because of the defense drop from close combat, your Shifu's gotta dodge a Waterfall crit here, otherwise we're in big trouble. Luckily, we do dodge the crit, and Sabrina sends out her Ursaluna. And under Trick Room, this thing is a monster. It has the ability Guts, which boosts your damage whenever you're affected by a status condition, and combine that with its held item being Flame Orb, which burns the holder. I've swapped out Urshifu for Florges since I know that Sabrina likes to use Protect on turn 1 to get her burn going. Since Crawdon is so slow, we're able to take it out with a Meteor Mash and getting us a very necessary attack boost. Sabrina then sends out her Gardevoir, and since Ursaluna protected last turn, it can't do it again, making it extremely vulnerable, so I just doubled into it, taking it out. We then take out Gardevoir with a Meteor Mash, winning us the battle against Sabrina. We acquire the Marsh Badge and the TM for Trick Room, and now we're on to my least favorite part of this game, the weather routes. The weather routes are located between Saffron City and Fuchsia City, and they are notorious for being filled with a bunch of super strong trainers who all have competitively viable Pokemon and teams. They also take advantage of the permanent weather you can find there. Our goal is of course to make it to Fuchsia City so that we can get our 6th gym badge from Koga. It's not all bad though, since you get to choose between going down from Vermilion City while you run into permanent hail and then permanent sun, or down from Celadon City while you run into permanent sand and then permanent rain. But because of the randomizer, the weather routes were all a big joke. No trainer had the Pokemon or teams that I prepared for, so I'm not even gonna bother showing them since I literally just swept through them all. Instead I'll showcase the encounters we caught instead. Route 12 yields us a Dragonair, which is an absolutely amazing encounter. Dragonite is one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, and Dragonite is such a good Pokemon, especially for this game as well. But we catch it and we name it Baton since they have a dragon on their flag. Haha, funny. On Route 13 we encounter a Grovyle, and Sceptile is in my top 3 favorite starters of all time, and it's just so cool. We're getting all the amazing Pokemon. Either way, we catch it and we name it Thailand. Running around in the grass on Route 14 and we encounter God. Literal God, the Lord Helix himself. We should truly be grateful for he has blessed us with his presence. Wow. Anyway, in the ball he goes, and he's named China. In the grass on Route 15, we encounter a second grass starter, this time from Galar, and it being Grookey. I love this little guy, plus Rillaboom is a really good grass Pokemon with priority Grassy Glide. Grookey eventually stays in the ball and is named Laos. We've now made it to Fuchsia City, but before we can take on Koga, there's a couple other things I want to do first. One of those being get access to the move tutor who can teach us egg moves. We find the guy and talk to him, and he says that he will play 4 Pokemon Cries, and if we guess them all right, we will get access to his tutoring. But lucky for me, I already know the answer, so the first one is Magmar, the second one is Nincada, the third one is Gallade, and then the last one is Kamala. Getting all of them right allows us to use his service to teach all of our Pokemon egg moves, and this will be very handy in the future. In another one of the houses in Fuchsia City, we find the Fishing Guru's younger brother, who gives us a Super Rod. We then take this new rod out to his little pond he has in his backyard to fish, and we encounter a Goldeen. Now, normally Goldeen isn't the best Pokemon, but Seaking has been given Fish's Rend in this game. Yeah, Dracovich's signature move, which is absolutely broken, so I'm very happy with this encounter. Before fighting Koga, I want to take a little trip into the Safari Zone, because of course we're able to get an encounter in there, but not before Brennan stops us, and he's looking to fight. Luckily, we are very prepared for this battle, and it's a lot easier than it probably should be. We're just going to sweep him with this one Dragonite. As Brennan's Metagross uses Stealth Rock, we Dragon Dance once. We then Dragon Dance again as Metagross explodes. Because of Dragonite's ability Multiscale, we are easily able to live this otherwise very scary attack. The sweep starts. We proceed to take out a couple of Brennan's Pokemon because we're +2 in both speed and attack, but we need to use one more Dragon Dance. This is because of Gardevoir's ability Trace, which copies my ability, giving it Multiscale, and a +2 Iron Head just isn't enough to one-hit it. But luckily I catch the perfect moment to use a third and final Dragon Dance. It's right in front of Brendan's Choice Scarfed Crawdon, who is persistent on using Aqua Jet. With +3 in speed and attack, we proceed to take out the rest of Brendan's team. As a reward for beating him, we get the HM for Rock Smash. Now that Brendan is out of our way, we can enter the Safari Zone. We pick up a Glameow, which is not a greatest encounter, but it could serve a niche purpose since it does get Fake Out and some decent stats. Well, we also pick up a couple of Mega Stones, some TMs, an Old Man's Teeth, and the HM for Surf. After that, we head on over to Route 18 where we encounter Hawlucha, a fast and hard-hitting fighting type that gets even stronger thanks to its ability Unburden. But we catch it and we name it Tunisia. After all of that, we're finally ready to take on Koga. Normally, Koga specializes in poison types, but not in this game. Since he's kind of a ninja, he has a bunch of super fast Pokemon, making this battle all about speed. He leads with his special attacking Swellow, who's holding the Choice Specs item, but he just U-turns out as we take a turn to set up Stealth Rocks. Greninja comes out as we go into Florges, who has a monstrous special defense, so it can take anything Greninja can throw at us, even if it critical hits. Florges soaks up the 2 serves, and we're able to retaliate with a Moonblast, one-shotting the Ninja Frog. Koga then sends out his ace, Toxtricity, and this isn't a normal Toxtricity, it's Mega. Well, it's Gigantamaxed, but those forms have been changed into Megas in this game. Luckily, we have Savine Milotic, who is also quite specially defensive, and we've also equipped it with a Chilem Berry to be able to take those massive boom bursts. We get hit by 2 Sludge Bombs, and thanks to Milotic's ground typing, it's only neutral damage. Sadly, we do get poisoned, and as we're able to one-shot Toxicity with an Earth Power, our HP dwindles down to just 35. That was close. Swallow comes back out, so we swap into Stakataka, who can eat the Flying type Boom Burst, thanks to Swallow's abilities Aerialate, with ease. I predict that he's going to swap out again, so I take this time to set up a Light Screen. I was right as the Celeor comes out, but our Hisuian Typhlosion can deal with this any day. Thanks to Stakataka's Light Screen, we only take 20 HP from the Sludge Bomb, and we're able to take it out in one hit with Flamethrower. Drapion then comes out, who has been very buffed in this game because has been given Urshifu's signature move, Wicked Blow, which always results in a critical hit. But funnily enough, the perfect counter for this is our own Urshifu. Koga is persistent on swapping, but thanks to the Stealth Rock, Swallow takes a lot of damage coming back in, so we go straight into Stakataka. This time around though, Swallow finally accepts its fate and finally goes down to a Rock Slide. The battle is far from over since Koga still has a lot of Pokemon left, but it's looking very good right now. Koga sends out his second Pokemon with the held item Life Orb, so we go straight into our Tentacruel. But Koga is a little wuss who just U-turns out and sends Drapion back in. But hey, I guess I shouldn't mind it too much since Stealth Rock damage is racking up. Urshifu eats the Wicked Blow with ease, and as I stupidly click Power Up Punch, Dragapult comes back out. And of course, Dragapult is immune to this move. So we go full circle again, swapping in Tentacruel, and this time we get hit by a Dragon Pulse instead of a U-turn. And I'm debating whether he's going to swap out again, but I decide to gamble on him staying in, so I click Ice Beam, and we finally take out this Dragapult. He's now down to his last Pokemon, and that being Drapion, so we go back into our Urshifu once again. And as we know, Urshifu took very little damage from the critical hit Wicked Blow, and sadly one close combat isn't enough to take out the Drapion, so we have to click 2 of them, but eventually he also falls. And that's Koga. For defeating Koga, we get our 6th gym badge, which is the Soul Badge. We're also awarded with the TM for Sludge Bomb. This also allows us to use Surf outside of battle, which means we can surf all the way to Cinnabar Island, where we can fight Blaine for our 7th gym badge. On our way to Cinnabar Island, we encounter a Milcery on Route 19, and Alcremie's Gigantamax form has been changed into a Mega form in this game, so I guess it's a pretty good encounter. We catch it and name it Argentina. On Route 20, we encounter a Drifblim, who's a pretty decent encounter as well, and immunities are always welcome. But before we can make it to Blaine, we find an old man standing outside a cave. He reveals himself to be Price, the Ice-type gym leader from Johto, and he asks if we're up for a lesson. We say yes, and the battle is on. As he leads with Vanilluxe, we're able to one-shot the Ice Cream with a close combat from Urshifu. Price then sends in his Weavile, and we could have probably stayed in with this Urshifu, but instead to swap out into my other Urshifu. Man, having two of these is very OP. Weavile doesn't want to go down to my Surging Strikes, so he swaps out into Arctivish, who is 4-time resistant to my Water type attack. Even though those 3 hits were critical hits, they still did barely any damage. But don't fret, we have the perfect counter for this Arctivish. Dry Skin Parasect. I was expecting a Fish's Rend here, but instead we get hit by a Choice Band boosted critical hit Psychic Fangs, and it does a lot. Luckily, we don't get crit on the second Psychic Fangs, and Parasect lives on just a slither of HP. We can then use a Spore, putting Arctivish to sleep. We can then take out this upside down fish with a Sappy Seed. Maybe that Spore wasn't needed. As Crabominable comes out, we go into Metagross, who can eat the incoming Ice Hammer. I opt for using Meteor Mash here since it's a roll to kill, but sadly we just miss it. But that's okay, with Metagross's insane defense, Drain Punch doesn't do that much damage, and we also equipped it with a Citrus Berry, so we regain a little bit of health, and then we can take out the Crabominable with a priority Bullet Punch. As Weavile comes in, I have to swap out to my Urshifu on this knockoff. I gotta make sure I know which one I'm swapping into, and Weavile knocks off my Mystic Water, and thanks to Weavile's knockoff, getting rid of my Mystic Water, Surging Strikes is not a one-hit KO, and Weavile lives on the tiniest amount of HP ever. That is super unlucky, but we're of course able to finish it off with a priority Aqua Jet the turn after that. Price then sends out his Soul Pokemon, a super bulky Dugong, which has Rest and Sleep Talk. We of course then swap into Tentacruel, who cannot get poisoned and also resists Dugong's only attacking move, being Surf. I take some time to set up 2 layers of Toxic Spikes so that Price's last Pokemon will be badly poisoned. I guess it's kinda late to do that, but hey, better late than never. The battle against this Dugong then gets super boring as it just continues to spam Surf as I go for Giga Drain to get a little bit of recovery and a little bit of damage as well. Oh, I also forgot to mention that this Dugong is holding a Leftovers, so the small amount of damage I'm doing, half of it just gets regained back, so it just takes even longer. Eventually Dugong gets low enough and it starts to rest. I take this time to go into Parasect, who yes can be poisoned, but will regain health if it uses Surf. It uses Sleep Talk, and on the first turn it goes for Rest again, and on the second turn we get a very lucky Surf, regaining a lot of HP back on Parasect. One Sappy Seed is almost enough to one-hit KO it, but sadly it lives on the tiniest amount of HP ever. We then get hit by Toxic, but another Sappy Seed is able to take out this annoying Pokemon. Price's last Pokemon is Mega Glalie, who gets badly poisoned when swapping in. Glalie's Double Edge becomes an Ice-type move because of its ability to Refrigerator, but Stakataka is able to tank it pretty well. We've also equipped Stakataka with a Shuka Berry so that it's able to live this Earthquake, and then we can take it out in one hit with a Rock Slide, winning us the battle against Price. Beating Price gives us a Glalie and also the item Choice Scarf, which is a very, very, very useful one. He then talks about Articuno being somewhere around here, so I guess we'll have to check that out. We then enter Seafoam Islands, where we're able to find a Grapploct who's a part fighting and water type in this game. I also find 2 legendary Pokemon in the Seafoam Islands, one of them being Keldeo, who's changed into a Graveler, and the other one being that Articuno that was changed into a Sentret. But sadly, I ended up killing both of them, so no static encounters for us this time. I'm not going to be too sad over those 2 encounters since we have a lot of Pokemon available. Anyway, we're moving on. We made it onto Cinnabar Island, and as I try to enter the gym, it says that it's locked, so I decided to go and check on Cinnabar Mansion, but not before May from Hoenn stops us, and she's looking to fight. We lead with Rillaboom, who can fake out the Solrock, breaking its Focus Sash. Solrock sadly does get Stealth Rocks up, and we could have prevented that because we do actually have access to Grassy Glide, but it's okay. We just take it out with a massive drum beating. May then sends out her Manectric, so we go into her special defensive wall, being Savine Milotic, on a not so devastating Overheat. We heal up once with Shore Up, as Overheat does less and less damage, and then we can one-shot the Manectric with an Earth Power. The Ancient Fish Relicanth then comes in, and I'm predicting a Water move, so I go into Beware here, who can take any of these extremely well. As May then swaps into her Flygon, who doesn't have Levitate, so it does get hit by Bulldoves, lowering its speed a little bit. So we can go ahead and go back into Milotic, who can take out the Flygon with one Moonblast. May then sends out her Ugly Fish again, so we go back into Beware, who can once again tank its incoming Waterfall. That procs our Citrus Berry, so we regain a little bit of health, and May swaps out once again this time into her Breloom. The Bulldoze doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but the speed drop is massive, and it's just enough damage to put it in KO range for one huge superpower. This Breloom was a huge threat, and I was honestly pretty worried about it, but Beware was able to take care of it. Relicanth then comes back in, and thanks to my defense drop, I risk getting killed by a crit Zen Headbutt, so I'm not risking that. But we go into Rillaboom on the incoming Earthquake, and it does very little damage. But May then swaps into her scariest Pokemon, speed boosting Mega Blaziken. But we have a pretty decent answer for this thing. It's Intimidate Gyarados. Even though May uses a Sword Stance, she's only at +1 thanks to Intimidate. I've equipped Gyarados with a Charty Berry, making it so the AI sees the most damage with close combat, which lowers both of its defenses. That makes it weak enough to be able to get one hit KO'd by one Aqua Fang. This annoying fish then comes back out, so I go into Rillaboom once again on the Waterfall, which we resist, and then we can finally deal with Relicanth using a Drum Beating. And hey, that was Dutha's May, and as a reward for beating her, we get a Speed Boost Torchic. But when I go check my PC, we didn't actually get anything. Maybe that's for the randomizer? I don't know. Either way, moving on to Blaine. Alright, we'll do a small amount of sidetracking before we actually take on Blaine. The first 4 gym leaders of Kanto offers us a rematch with their improved teams. We do get some really good items for defeating them, so I think it's worth it. It's just that these battles are not a joke at all. First off is Brock, and we can deal with this lead Gigalith by one-shotting it with close combat from Armachamp. Brock then straight away sends out his ace, which is Mega Aerodactyl, so I swap into Diancie, who is very physically defensive here. And there's the Mega. Luckily we can eat up the dual Wing Beat, as Aerodactyl then uses a Dragon Dance on the following turn. We do about 50% with a Diamond Storm, and this time we do get the +2 in defense, which comes in super clutch here. Thanks to the defense boost, we're able to eat up this Stone Edge, and then we can take out this Flying Rock Bird with another Diamond Storm as we get a second defense boost, putting us at +4. But sadly our defense boosts don't make a difference against special attacking Omastar, so we go into Rillaboom, who we've equipped with a Yache Berry in case we get hit by an Ice Beam. As Omastar sets up a Shell Smash, this time without a White Herb, having its defenses lowered, we can take it out with one priority Grassy Glide. Brock then sends out his Sand Rush Sand Slash, as I debate whether I should swap out or not. I decided to stay in as we are just shy of one hit KOing the Sand Slash. He sets up his Sword Stance, but he is no match for a priority Grassy Glide. And then Sand Slash falls. Rillaboom is really putting in a lot of work. But Brock then sends out his Weakness Policy Tyranitar, and Rillaboom is just not strong enough to be able to one-hit KO it, and I do not want to proc its Weakness Policy. So we go into our Choice Scarfed Urshifu, who can outspeed and take out the Tyranitar, even though it's at +1 with a close combat. Brock is now down to his last Pokemon, and that is Life Orb Lycanroc. I could have probably stayed in here, as he goes for an Cell Rock, and we could have definitely just one-hit KO'd it with another close combat. But we decided to play it safe and go into Beware, who thanks to its fluffy ability and its held item being a Chople Berry, takes very little damage from any of its moves. We're then able to one-hit KO it with a superpower. And hey, that's Brock defeated for a second time. As a reward for defeating him, we get an Aerodactylite and also the TM for Stone Edge, which is a very useful rock-type move. But that is just one out of the 4 rematches that we're going to be doing. But hey, at least we came out of it unscathed. Next up is a rematch with Misty, and she has a very buffed up water team compared to the first fight with her. She takes full advantage of rain with swift swimmers and super hard hitting stab water type attacks that even Pokemon that resist them can't handle very well. She leads the battle with Drizzle Politoed, but luckily we have access to Mega Sceptile, who got a big buff getting Technician, and we're able to take out the Politoed with Bullet Seed, even though it only connects twice. Her next Pokemon is Greninja, and sadly we get hit by a priority Water Shuriken, although we're 4 times resistant to it, so it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. We're then able to take out the Greninja with another Bullet Seed. Damn, this thing is OP. Oh yeah, we were able to pick up the Mega Stone for Sceptile from a guy next to Celadon City. Apparently if you show him a starter Pokemon that can Mega Evolve, he'll just give you the respective Mega Stone. Super convenient. Back to the battle, as Gorbis comes out, who's been changed into a water fairy type in this game. Super good change. We're once again able to outspeed and take it out with one Bullet Seed. Misty then sends out her Swift Swing Kingdra, as I want to swap out since I don't want to risk getting hit by a 4 times effective Ice Beam. So we swap into our specially defensive Tentacruel, who resists all of Kingdra's moves except for Dragon Pulse. We slowly chip away at Kingdra's health with Dazzling Gleams as we continue to get hit by Dragon Pulses, and as long as we don't get crit, we should be fine. We've also equipped Tentacruel with a Citrus Berry just to help against this battle, and eventually Kingdra falls. When Kingdra falls, Misty sees this as an opportunity to send out her ace, which is Mega Gyarados, but luckily we brought fighting water type Urshifu to this battle, as she starts using a Dragon Dance, and then we get hit by a critical hit Earthquake, almost taking out Urshifu, but luckily we live, and then we can retaliate, taking out Gyarados with one massive close combat. Misty's last Pokemon is super gimmicky Inteleon, who has the held item Scope Lens. So I go into very specially defensive Florges, who can set up a Wish, because I know that I want to swap out again, and in case she gets a critical hit on the Pokemon we swap in, we're able to regain a lot of HP thanks to Wish. Florges does get hit by a critical hit Snipe Shot, but that's okay because we regain a lot of our health. And then we go ahead and swap out to our Ludicolo, who can use one Fake Out to flinch the Inteleon and then proceed to take it out with one Energy Ball. And hey, that's Deathless Misty. Mega Sceptile definitely put in a lot of work, and as a reward for beating Misty a second time, we get a Gyarados, which means we can Mega Evolve our own Gyarados, which could be very useful. We also get a Froakie, who thanks to the randomizer, turns out to be a Magnezone, which is a very, very, very useful Pokemon. Definitely going to come in handy. We can now have a rematch with Lieutenant Surge. Surge's team has also been mega buffed for his second battle, with some really annoying quirks, such as likely screen-setting Pachirisu, 2 Rotom forms, and Electric Terrain Setter. I think I've come up with a team that's going to be able to handle him, although this battle is a lot scarier than the previous two. He leads with his aforementioned screen-setting Pachirisu, who sets up a light screen, so we set up 2 layers of spikes, deal some chip damage to grounded Pokemon that swap in. Pachirisu then swaps out as Rotom Wash comes in, so we swap into Dry Skin Parasect, who really won't be taking a lot of damage from anything Rotom can throw at us. We use the Spore, putting Rotom to sleep. Surge doesn't really want his sleeping Pokemon to stay in, and I predict this, going for a Brick Break, which breaks the light screen. Dracozolt comes out, but we have Savine Milotic, who can easily deal with it, and one hit KOs it with one Moonblast. One of Lieutenant Surge's scariest Pokemon then comes out, which is Rotom, so we swap into Vikavolt, who can easily deal with this Pokemon. We take a lot more damage than I had anticipated from Leaf Storm, and I predict that he's going to swap out, so instead of going for the attack, I set up a Sticky Web to help us with some speed control against future Pokemon. My prediction was correct, as he swaps into his Terrain Setter, Dedenne, who sets up Electric Terrain. So we swap into our own Terrain Setter, Rillaboom, who changes the Electric Terrain into Grassy Terrain. We get a lot of damage with one Fake Out that also flinches Dedenne, and then the next turn after that, we can take out Dedenne with a priority Grassy Glide. Rotom then comes back out, and I'm predicting either a Hidden Power Ice or that he Nasty Plots. I'm betting on him attacking with Hidden Power Ice, and I decide to swap in Vikavolt once again. But I'm wrong, and he sets up a Nasty Plot, putting him at +2. This is looking really grim, as Vikavolt is not able to live a +2 Leaf Storm from Rotom, and sadly faints. I should have gone into Greninja first, who was able to outspeed and take it out with an Ice Beam. So that's what we go ahead and do the next turn. Losing Vikavolt there could have definitely been avoided, but what's done is done. Surge then sends out his ace, being Mega Manectric, and I'm not sure if the AI can see that I have the ability Protein, but it turns that it can, as I swap in Savine Milotic, who gets hit by a pretty weak Flamethrower, and thanks to our held item leftovers, we were able to regain a little bit of HP. The turn after that, we're able to dodge a critical hit, Hidden Power Grass, and then we can take out the Mega Manectric with an Earth Power. We definitely did not play around the crit there, but luckily we were able to dodge it. Whew. As Surge then swaps out his Rotom Wash again, we go straight into Parasect. We go for a Sappy Seed as Rotom gets a very lucky turn 2 Wake Up and sets up a very scary Nasty Plot. Luckily, that shouldn't do too much as we resist all of its moves, and a Sappy Seed is able to one-shot the Rotom. As Surge's last Pokemon, Pachirisu, comes back out, who uses Nuzzle, paralyzing my Parasect. We use a Sappy Seed, who gets Pachirisu super low. I don't know why I was so scared of U-turn dealing a lot of damage. We definitely would have lived, but I decided to play it safe and swap into Mr. Mime. Thanks to the Leech Seed that was planted by Sappy Seed, that drains the last of Pachirisu's HP, we are able to defeat Surge. As a reward for beating him, we get a Light Clay and a Megastone from Manectric. Erika is the last rematch out of all the gym leaders, and her grass team isn't that difficult to deal with. She did want us to go pick up some medicine for her Gloom first, so we talked to our nurse in Fuchsia City who gave us some, and now we can start our rematch with Erika. We lead with our Blazing Soul Typhlosion, who gets priority to its Will-O-Wisp, limiting the damage from Serena's High Jump Kick. The burn damage from the Will-O-Wisp breaks Serena's Focus Sash, which means that the turn after that we're able to take it out with a Burn Up. Erika doesn't have a full grass team in this battle, since the next Pokemon she sends out is a Hawlucha, but I came prepared with Mimikyu. Hawlucha sets up not one, but 2 sword stances. But thanks to our disguise ability, I'm not too worried about it, and we're also able to one-shot it with a play rough. Erika's third Pokemon is a Blossom, who has been changed into Grass Fairy in this game. It also comes back in with Quiver Dance, so we definitely don't want to have it set up on us. But we swap into Hisuian Typhlosion, who I've equipped with a Chesto Berry just in case Blossom hits a Sleep Powder. Luckily we're able to dodge it, and then we can take out the Blossom with a huge Eruption. Erika then sends out her Rillaboom, and this thing can be pretty scary. It gets Sword Stance as well as priority Grassy Glide, but we've brought our own Hawlucha to this battle who takes the incoming Grassy Glide pretty well. I've also equipped Hawlucha with a Koba Berry in case Rillaboom decides to go for Acrobatics, just so that we're able to live at least one of them. As both Pokemon set up a Sword Stance, I'm quite worried that Hawlucha won't be able to live in Acrobatics, even though we're holding the Koba Berry. But luckily, Rillaboom sets up another Sword Stance as we're able to take it out with 2 Acrobatics of our own. As Erika sends in her Superior, I'm predicting a Grass move coming in, so I swap into Parasect, who is 4 times resistant to all of its Grass moves. We're obviously immune to Leech Seed, and we're almost able to one-shot Superior with a Leech Life, but it lives on just a slither of HP. A second Leech Life is able to finish the job, and Superior goes down. Erika then sends out her ace, which is Mega Venusaur. So I go into Metagross, predicting a poison move here, which Metagross is of course immune to. I've equipped Metagross with a Shuka Berry to be able to live at least 1 Earth Power, as we use Zen Headbutt, dealing a big chunk of damage to the enemy Venusaur. I do something very risky here, as I go for a Bullet Punch, thinking it's gonna be enough damage here. Sadly, I'm wrong, and we get hit by a second Earth Power. And oh boy, that was risky. Metagross lives on 29 HP, and the turn after that, we're able to take out the Venusaur with a second Bullet Punch, winning us the battle against Erika. As a reward for beating Erika, we get the TM for Grass Knot, and we also get a Snivy, or normally it would be a Snivy, but it turns out to be a Charmeleon. After Erika, I decide to head up Cinnabar Mansion, where we encounter a Toxapex, which is a really good encounter. I decide to catch it, and we name it Azerbaijan. After finding a couple of random items, some Megastones, some TMs, and finally the key to the Cinnabar Islands gym, we can take on Blaine and his fire types. Blaine has a sun-themed team with chlorophyll users and hard-hitting fire types. He leads with Torkoal, who sets up the sun thanks to its drought ability. Sadly, the plan here is to sack our Sandslash. Its job is to get up our Stealth Rocks and get rid of the enemy's Stealth Rock, so we just use Rapid Spin, as Torkoal uses Lava Plume and gets a very lucky burn. He then sets up Stealth Rocks again, so I have to use another Rapid Spin. But then we salute the Sandslash as it has served its purpose, and it faints. It does allow us to swap in our Hisuian Typhlosion and Revenge Kill with a Scorching Sands. Hisuian Typhlosion is a super useful Pokemon to bring to this battle because it does get Flash Fire, which nullifies all fire type attacks. As Torkoal falls, Blaine sends out his scariest Pokemon, Sunflora. It has been massively buffed in this game, and it's part fire type instead of pure grass. And I go into Gyarados, predicting a ground move coming in. Sunflora's HP, special attack, and speed stat have all been massively buffed, and it also gets the access to the ability Chlorophyll. Gyarados being out, that baits a grass type move, which allows us to swap into our Blacephalon, who can eat the incoming grass move and then retaliate, taking out Sunflora with a flamethrower. Oof, that's one of Blaine's scariest Pokemon gone. Also, the Stealth Rock damage is really doing work here. Blaine then sends out his own Typhlosion, who has the held item Heavy Duty Boots, making him not take any Stealth Rock damage when swapping in. The perfect counter for this Typhlosion is his Hisuian counterpart, Hisuian Typhlosion, as it can only get hit by its Hidden Power Grass, which does very little damage. We use a Shadow Ball, which does just under 50%, but we get a very lucky special defense drop. So next turn we're able to finish it off with another Shadow Ball. Does that make Hisuian Typhlosion better than normal Typhlosion? I think its design is definitely cooler. Blaine then sends out his football player, Cinderace, who has the ability Protein. Even though it's called Libero, it's still the same ability. Getting Stab on any of its moves it uses is definitely very scary and should never be overlooked. As he attempts to go for a Sucker Punch, we swap in Gyarados, who gets off an Intimidate, lowering its attack by 1 stage. We use Rain Dance as Blaine swaps out to his Executor. Thanks to Rain being up and not Sun, Executor cannot take advantage of its ability Chlorophyll. Mimikyu is just shy of one-shotting Executor with a Shadow Claw, and we get hit by a pretty strong Psyshock. Mimikyu is able to shake it off and then finish off the Coconut Tree with a Shadow Sneak. Cinderace then comes back out, who continues to take Stealth Rock damage, and is now under 50%. So we once again go into Gyarados, who can once again lower Cinderace's attack by 1 stage thanks to Intimidate, and Zen Headbutt doesn't do too much damage. As long as we don't get flinched here, a Rain boosted Aquafang should be able to take out the football player. Luckily we don't get flinched and Cinderace falls. Blaine's ace then comes out, Charizard, and of course this is Mega Charizard, and this is exactly why we wanted Stealth Rocks up, Charizard's already lost 50% of its HP coming in. But as Charizard Mega Evolves, he sets up the Sun, getting rid of our rain, so I decided to swap out into Colossal. Colossal shrugs off an Air Slash, and even a Solar Beam doesn't really face us. Colossal is unable to take out Charizard with a Rock Slide, winning us the battle against Blaine. Even though we lost the Pokemon, it was a calculated death, so I would say that went a lot better than I had anticipated. As a reward for beating Blaine, we get our 7th badge, the Volcano badge. We also get the TM for Fire Blast and 10 Life Orbs. We're also able to pick up a Choice Card from Blaine by showing him a Pokemon with a high special attack, and earlier we also picked up a Focus Sash from Chuck. Very good items, both of them. Right after Blaine, we can head into the laboratory on Cinnabar, where we find the final Johto leader. It's Jasmine, who specializes in steel types. We of course accept the challenge, as she says that she's a little shy. I don't know if I believe that. She leads off with Fortress as I send out Charizard. We've equipped Charizard with a Mega Stone, which allows us to Mega Evolve him. We hit Fortress with a 4 times effective Sun boosted Flamethrower, but because of its sturdy ability, it lives on 1 HP and is sadly able to set up Stealth Rocks. The turn after that, Fortress falls to another Flamethrower as Jasmine sends out her Choice Banded Metal. And oh boy, this thing is scary. The Choice Band kind of helps us here since it'll be locked into just one move, so we can swap into a Pokemon that's immune, and I predict a Thunder Punch, which is exactly what happens, so Evade Milotic is the perfect answer here. I used a Scald because honestly I was expecting it to swap out because I know it can't hit me, but it decides to stay in, so we just use an Earth Power, taking it out the turn after, as Jasmine sends in her Metagross, and oh boy, this is where the fun begins. So I swap in my Blacephalon, who takes a little bit of damage from Stealth Rock, but even more damage from the incoming Meteor Mash. And oh boy, I do something risky here. If Blacephalon is able to live this next Bullet Punch, we could sweep the rest of Jasmine's team. We get super lucky and we live on just 5 HP, and Jasmine doesn't have any other Pokemon with priority moves, so we go to Sweep Town from here. We've equipped Blacephalon with a Choice Scarf, making it really fast, but only be able to use Flamethrower. This makes us guaranteed to outspeed everything, and since Jasmine doesn't have any fire resists, we can just sweep through. And we keep getting stronger for every Pokemon we take down as well, thanks to Blacephalon's ability being Beast Boost. Beast Boost is a better Moxie because it raises your highest stat, and in this case is our special attack, so we keep on getting stronger for every Pokemon we take down. A couple of Flamethrowers later, and Jasmine's last Pokemon falls. Wow, this was definitely one of the easiest Johto battles. As a reward for beating her, we get the Choice Band item as well as an Aggronite. I also show her a Pokemon that has a very high physical defense. She gives me a Steelix Sight for that, as well as an Assault Vest. Before we head on over to the 8th and final gym, there's one more mini-boss fight I want to do. Last sidetrack, I promise. I've been loving the challenge battles that are scattered around the region. Most of them are optional, but they're usually pretty worth it. If you talk to the kid in this house, he will ask you if you like Mudkips, and if you say no both times, he says that we will pay, engaging us in a battle. And his name is literally Dumbass Kid. He leads with his Swampert as I lead with my Choice Spect Alola Ninetales. I know it's going to swap out, so I see this as an opportunity to set up an Aurora Veil. Scissor comes in, so I go into my Charizard, who can Mega Evolve. But Scissor just U-turns out, and in comes Seeking. I probably could have stayed in here because we're definitely faster, and Fish's Rend doesn't do that much damage in the sun. But I decided to play it safe, and swap into Dry Skin Parasect, who can eat the incoming Fish's Rend with ease. This Seeking is holding a Choice Band, so I decided to go for Spore as I'm predicting that it's going to swap out since he can't do any damage to me. But he stays in as we go for a Sappy Seed, who is able to one-shot the Seeking. Our Aurora Veil then wears off as Pelipper comes in, who sets up the Rain. Since Hurricane is 100% accurate during rain, I really don't want to lose Parasect, so I decided to go into Zeraora, who resists it and can tank it pretty well. I'm doing a 5-head read here and predicting that Pelipper is not going to want to stay in against Zeraora. And I'm right. He swaps into Swampert, but we've already swapped in to our Alola Ninetales. Of course, he's going to swap back up to Scizor, so we set up another Aurora Veil. As the cycle repeats itself once again, we go into Charizard, who can set up the Sun for us, as Scizor U-turns out, bringing out Pelipper. Since Pelipper came in first, who set up Rain, we can then Mega Evolve to set up Sun, making it so that Surf doesn't do a lot of damage. We're also able to charge up Solar Beam in just one turn thanks to Sun being out, and there's a big chunk to Pelipper's HP. We can then finish off Pelipper with a second Solar Beam, and that's his Weather Setter gone. Scizor then comes out, who doesn't do a whole lot of damage with a Bullet Punch, and falls to a Sun boosted Flamethrower. I don't really know what he was thinking, bringing out Scizor, who is 4 times weak to my fire moves, and in the sun. Anyway, then Swampert comes back out, and luckily we still have the Sun up, making Solar Beam charge in just one turn. And even Swampert's Rindo Berry is not able to save it, as it falls to my 4 times effective Solar Beam. He then sends out Frostmoth, who's also 4 times weak to my Fire type moves, so this little Ice Bug also falls to a Flamethrower. But this kid then sends out his second Swampert, and I know this is the Mega Swampert, but sadly our sun fades, so we can't just Solar Beam it, so I have to go ahead and swap out into Rillaboom. Rillaboom resists the incoming Liquidation, and the next turn we can use a Fake Out, dealing some chip damage to the Swampert. I don't know if that was necessary, as I think Swampert would have fallen to just a Grassy Glide, but hey, better safe than sorry. And hey, we beat this dumbass kid. That's his name, don't yell at me. As a reward for beating him, we get a Mudkip, but because of the randomizer, it turns out to be a Trubbish. I would have preferred the Mudkip. We can now head back to Viridian City to get our 8th and final gym badge, but on Route 21 we encounter an Ganondorf, which is a really cool encounter. We catch it and name it Nepal. Hey, we've made it all the way back to Viridian City, the home of the 8th and final gym. But as we're about to enter the gym, Brendan, our rival, who we've been fighting a couple of times, stops us. Oh god, does he want another battle? He talks about a legendary Pokemon of some sorts in Cerulean Cave, and he needs us ASAP. He takes us there as a Team Rocket admin runs up to us. I got a bad feeling about this. As we traverse the absolute labyrinth that is Cerulean Cave, we encounter grunts, but we also find Megastones and TMs, and some pretty good ones as well. But then we make it to the end, or at least what I think is the end. We get ambushed by 2 Team Rocket admins, and we have to fight both of them. Not in a double battle, but in a back-to-back battle. Oh god, this is gonna be hard. They both have super annoying gimmicks and very strong Pokemon. I'm not allowed to change or heal any of my Pokemon in between the 2 battles. This could get rough, but alright, Archer's first. He leads with his Focus Sash Mamoswine as I lead with my Choice Band Urshifu. Luckily, we're able to one-hit KO the Mamoswine thanks to Surging Strikes being a multi-hit move, effectively rendering his Focus Sash useless. Mimikyu then comes out, and I decide to play it very, very risky and go for another Surging Strikes. Mimikyu sets up a Swords Dance. That could have gone really badly, so we're able to get our Surging Strikes off, but Mimikyu lives on just 1 HP. That is super, super unlucky. But I guess that's not the end of the world. We still have Toxapex, who can deal with Mimikyu with ease. We don't take a whole lot of damage from the +2 play rough, but I definitely should have calculated whether we were dead to a crit Shadow Claw or not. Luckily, we're able to dodge the crit, and we're able to take out the Mimikyu with a Poison Jab. That's 2 Pokemon down, and hey, this battle is going pretty smoothly so far. As Archer sends out his Durant, I send in my funniest gimmick ever. Special attacking Gyarados. But hey, I believe it's gonna work. We've also equipped Gyarados with a Choice Specs, but seeing this infamous physical attacker with moves like Fire Blast and Scald just gets a laugh out of me. As Durant sets up a Hone Claws, getting a +1 in attack, we're able to lower that back down with Intimidate. We then go for Fire Blast, and we need to hit this, but sadly we get crit instead. Oh god, we can't get flinched again. But luckily we don't, and Fire Blast connects, and Durant faints. Archer is now down to his last Pokemon, his Houndoom, his Mega Houndoom. So we swap into Deontay, who shrugs off the Fire Wrath. Oh, I forgot the Mega Houndoom gets the ability Dark Aura, making its Dark type moves even stronger. I use a Diamond Storm, who's just shy of taking out the Houndoom in 1 hit, as we get hit by another Fire Wrath, taking us below 50%. As we get hit by a 3rd Fire Wrath, it flinches us. I didn't even know this move could flinch us, but apparently it can. Luckily, the 4th Fire Wrath does not flinch us, and as we use Diamond Storm one more time, Houndoom falls, and we beat Archer without any casualties. That's the first trainer done. But that's just the first half. We still have another trainer to deal with, and a lot of our Pokemon have taken a significant amount of damage. Rocket admin Ariana leads with Trick Room setter Hatrini, and we need to deal with this Hatrini before it gets Trick Room up. Otherwise this battle will get significantly harder. Luckily, Choice Banded Urshifu one-hit KOs the Hatrini with an Iron Head. Honchkrow then comes in, who has the ability Super Luck, and is also holding a Scope Lens, basically guaranteeing all of its moves becoming a critical hit. But luckily we have Kingler, who cannot get critical hit thanks to its ability Shell Armor. We risk losing Kingler here because Ice Hammer is not a guaranteed one-hit KO, it's a roll. Luckily we're able to get that roll, and Honchkrow falls. Weakness Policy Rhyperior then comes out, and I initially had another plan for dealing with this, but seeing as it doesn't have Sturdy, I decided to stay in, thinking 1 Crab Hammer from Kingler will be enough to get the job done. And would you look at that? It is. This very scary back-to-back battle is now down to its last Pokemon, being Mawile. And of course, it's Mega Mawile. But we swap into Hisuian Typhlosion, who's able to outspeed and hit Mega Mawile with a Will-O-Wisp. As Mawile then goes for a second Swords Dance, I'm getting kind of worried that we might not be able to live a Sucker Punch. But luckily, Mawile decides to not go for Sucker Punch, and we can take out Ariana's last Pokemon with a Burn Up. And hey, we beat one of the hardest battles in this game completely deathless. Honestly, I'm quite proud of myself for that. As Ariana herself says, she's quite impressed. For beating these two, we get their respective Megastones, being Mawile and Houndumite, but I have a feeling this isn't the end. As Archer leaves, he tells us to stop his boss. I don't really know what's coming, but I'm scared to find out. After defeating the two rocket admins, we continue our way through Cerulean Cave, and when we get near the end, we spot something. It looks like Giovanni, and he's standing next to Mewtwo. We walk up and talk to him as he says that we are too late. He then captures Mewtwo in a Master Ball and says that his Mega Mewtwo Stone will come in handy. Giovanni then says that we are powerless to stop him and that he will take over the world, but not before someone swoops in. And it's Lance, the Dragon-type trainer of the Elite Four. Lance then says that we should team up, so this is another tag battle, and we're only allowed to bring 3 Pokemon. So I bring Savine, Milotic, Metagross, and Diancie. The battle starts off with my Milotic, Lance's Dragapult, against Giovanni's Tapu Lele and Scrafty. As Lance sets up a light screen, greatly decreasing the damage from Tapu Lele's Psychic, we're able to one-shot the Scrafty with a Moonblast. Giovanni then sends in one of his Ultra Beasts, Celesteela, and this thing can be pretty scary. We go for a Moonblast onto the Celesteela, and we get the special attack drop, which is massive, as we get hit by a Psychic from Tapu Lele. I really don't want to risk getting crit by Psychic, so I take one turn to shore up, as Dragapult uses a Phantom Force onto the Celesteela. Lance gets hit by a Meteor Beam from Celesteela, but is able to shrug it off pretty easily. We then go for a Moonblast onto Tapu Lele, and thanks to our ability Serene Grace, we're able to get another special attack drop, this time on the Tapu Lele. So thanks to Serene Grace, we now have a 60% chance instead of 30 of lowering the Pokemon we hit with Moonblast's special attack. Tapu Lele's Psychic is therefore just doing less and less damage, and the turn after that, Tapu Lele falls to a Phantom Force from Dragapult. We deal some chip damage to Celesteela with Moonblast, sadly not lowering its special attack this time. Giovanni then sends in his Tyranitar, who sets up the sand. As Dragapult gets hit by another Meteor Beam from Celesteela, it sets up Reflect, which could come in very handy here. Earth Power doesn't really do a lot of damage to Tyranitar thanks to its Assault Vest, as Dragapult then falls to a Crunch. Lance then sends out his Dialga, who gets hit by a neutral Flamethrower, and then Dialga can finish off Celesteela with a Thunderbolt. We use an Earth Power again on Tyranitar, dealing a little bit of damage, as Tyranitar then goes for a high horsepower onto Dialga. Giovanni then sends out his Excadrill, and oh boy am I scared of this thing. It's the only thing that can one-hit Milotic, and I really do not want to lose this Pokemon. Not sure if we're dead to just one Iron Head, but I decide to stay in and risk it, and go for a Moonblast, which breaks the Excadrill's air balloon. Luckily for us, he sets up a Sword Stance, which means that we're not dead this turn, as Dialga uses a Dragon Pulse onto Tyranitar, barely dealing any damage, as Tyranitar then retaliates with a high horsepower. Damn, Dragon Pulse Reflect is really putting in work here. Milotic is definitely dead to an Iron Head here, so I decide to play it safe and go for a Protect, as Excadrill instead uses Rock Slide. Hopefully Dialga doesn't get flinched, and he's able to take out the Excadrill with a Flamethrower. Luckily he's able to dodge it, and that's exactly what happens. Excadrill falls. Sadly Dialga then does fall to a final high horsepower, as Lance sends out his Salamence, and Giovanni sends out his Mewtwo. Soul Robbery does so much damage to my Milotic, but a Flying type critical hit Double Edge into Mewtwo one-hit KOs it. But as Mewtwo falls, it is then resurrected as Mega Mewtwo. This is unfair. This gotta be cheating. Luckily, we were able to get a special attack drop with Moonblast onto the Mega Mewtwo, as both Milotic and Salamence takes a little bit of damage from the Rock Slide. I then want to Protect on the second turn, and the Salamence heals up with Roost, removing its Flying type, making this next Rock Slide not deal super effective damage. Salamence then gets hit by a massive Soul Robbery, but he's able to shrug it off and then can take out Mewtwo with a Double Edge. We then proceed to take out Giovanni's last Pokemon, Tyranitar, with one final Moonblast. And wow, would you look at that, we were able to defeat this Giovanni battle with me just using one Pokemon. Wow, Savine Milotic is really perfect for this battle. Giovanni then says that he is truly humbled as Mewtwo proceeds to break out of its Master Ball. I didn't even know that was possible. Mewtwo then shakes all of Cerulean Cave, teleporting all of us outside. And as Giovanni gives us the Megastone for Mewtwo and Lance gives us the Megastone for Salamence, we can now head over to Viridian City to take on our 8th and final gym. But oh, not before we get our encounter in Cerulean Cave. We encounter a Torracat, we catch it, and name it Palau. Alright, now that we've dealt with Team Rocket, we can actually head on over to Viridian City, where we will fight our 8th and final gym battle. Normally this would be against Giovanni, but he's been replaced by someone a little scarier, Claire, who specializes in dragon types, or she normally would, but for some reason she's got a Magearna and an Aerodactyl, who last time I checked weren't really dragons. She leads off with this Focus Ashed Aerodactyl, but we're able to one-shot that with Choice Scarf to Urshifu using Surging Strikes. Taking out her Aerodactyl stops her from setting up Stealth Rocks, which allows us to swap around freely in the future. After having her Aerodactyl taken out, she goes full out on us, sending out her Life Orb Naganadel. We cannot allow this thing to get a KO because of its Beast Boost ability. It also hits super hard with Flamethrowers, Sludge Waves, Draco Meteors, and it's also able to set up with a Nasty Blot, as we swap in our Assault Vest Takataka, who can deal a lot of damage with a bad Tantrum, and Naganadel sets up a second Nasty Plot. This thing is now a +4, and I don't think we're going to be able to live a critical hit Draco Meteor. We get super lucky by not getting crit, and we live on just 28 HP. And then we're able to take out the Naganadel with one more Stomping Tantrum. Claire then sends out her very real, super real dragon Pokemon, Magearna. And because of Stack Attack's HP being so low, there's going to be a random move coming here, but luckily we have Hisuian Typhlosion, which resists or is immune to all of its moves. Typhlosion tanks the Flash Cannon pretty well, and then we're able to one-shot Magearna with a Choice Specs boosted Flamethrower. That's half of Claire team's gone without any casualties. This is going super well. As she sends out probably one of the most broken Pokemon ever, Dracovish. I noticed a Fish's Rend coming, so we swap out once again to Dryskin Parasect. I use Spore as I predict that Dracovish is going to swap out because it's locked into Fish's Rend thanks to its Choice Band item. And hey, for once I was actually right. Dragonite gets put to sleep as it comes in. This gives us a couple of free turns where we can swap in to Diancie. I'm gambling that Dragonite's going to be asleep for at least one more turn, so I take this opportunity to set up a Reflect. But we get super unlucky and Dragonite wakes up on the next turn. Dragonite sets up a Dragon Dance, and this is where it could really go badly. I need to use a Diamond Storm and really hope for a defense boost, as Dragonite sets up a second Dragon Dance. Sadly, we don't get it, and Dragonite is now at +4 thanks to me activating its weakness policy. And also, thanks to its multi-scale ability, it doesn't take a whole lot of damage from the Diamond Storm. Luckily, Diancie is an absolute beast, and thanks to the Reflect, Dual Wing Beat barely does anything, and we're able to finish off Dragonite with a second Diamond Storm. And that time, of course, we get the second defense boost, when it doesn't even make a difference, because we have to swap out when Duraludon comes in. And this is where this battle gets really tricky. I need to swap into Water-type Urshifu, who resists the incoming Steel Beam, so that we can bait out the Thunderbolt, and allowing us to swap in cleanly with Sevian Milotic. Urshifu takes just under 50% from the Steel Beam, which is a really good amount. I'm betting on that wasn't a low roll, which will allow us to do this at least one more time. With Urshifu being out, this baits Thunderbolt, which means we swap into Ground-type Milotic, who's immune. Milotic is able to live even a critical hit Steel Beam, thanks to its Barbary Berry, but that's all it can live. We have to settle for just one Earth Power. It does just over 90% of Duraludon's HP, and a critical hit there would have come in super clutch. Sadly, we don't get it, and we have to swap back out to Urshifu. Urshifu should be able to take the incoming Steel Beam if the previous one wasn't a low roll and this isn't a high roll or a critical hit. We pray. I really should have calced this. But Urshifu is able to take it and lives on just 31 HP. We've been playing super carelessly here, and we keep getting away with it. Duraludon then falls to a close combat. Claire is now down to her last Pokemon, her Dracovish, and because of Urshifu's low HP, it sees any move as being enough to one-hit KO, but I do think that Parasect is the safest option, as we get it right, it uses Fish's Rend. And I decide to BM this Dracovish, putting it to sleep with Spore, as I then use Sappy Seed, and thanks to the Leech Seed being planted, it does about 50%, and then we're able to take out the Dracovish the second turn with one and final Sappy Seed. And hey, that's it, we've beaten all 8 gym leaders in Kanto. As a reward for beating Claire, she gives us a TM for Dragon Pulse, and she also tells us that she can teach our Dragon Pokemon Draco Meteor. I guess the only thing we can do now is head on over to Victory Road and then the Elite Four. Now that we collected all 8 gym badges, we can make our way to Victory Road and then the Elite Four, but not before a scientist stops us and tells us that there are some legendary Pokemon roaming the region now. I'm not that interested in going after them, since we still have a lot of Pokemon alive. I continue walking as we get stopped by our rival Fart on Route 22. This is the exact same spot where we had our first rival fight with him. How nostalgic. Anyway, we're going straight into the battle. As his Staraptor uses U-turn, we take a turn to set up some Stealth Rocks. His Choice Banded Kartana then comes in, which means we swap into Hisuian Typhlosion. Typhlosion is able to eat up 2 Smart Strikes, even though the second one is a critical hit, and then retaliate with a Flamethrower, taking out Kartana. Huge Power Azumarill then comes in, so I go into Dry Skin Parasect, who is immune to its incoming water type attack. We've also equipped Parasect with a Yachi Berry, so the AI sees Play Rough as doing the most amount of damage, even though it will never 3-shot me. We then take out a Azumarill with a Sappy Seed. Staraptor comes in to revenge kill with a flying type attack, so I swap into Diancie, who's able to wall this thing. We take some damage from the 2 Brave Birds, but are able to regain some HP thanks to our Citrus Berry, and then we can take out Staraptor with a Diamond Storm. Fart then sends out his Venusaur, and I know there's a grass move coming, so I swap into my Hawlucha, who's able to resist it. I've equipped Hawlucha with a Chesto Berry in case it gets put to sleep with Sleep Powder. And I'm debating whether we should use Sword Stance here as Venusaur Mega Evolves. I decided to play it super risky and go for the Sword Stance, as Venusaur uses a Sludge Bomb, taking us down to just 12 HP. Luckily, we're able to dodge the poison, and I'm thinking that 1 Acrobatics is going to be enough to take out Venusaur, but we are just shy of 1-hit KOing it, as Hawlucha then falls to a Sludge Bomb. Since we're so close to the end, and Hawlucha wasn't really an Elite 4 candidate, so I guess it's okay, even though it still hurts. We're then able to send in Hisuian Typhlosion, who can revenge kill with a Flamethrower. Electivire then comes in, and I'm predicting an electric move, so we go into Savine Milotic, who's immune. Thanks to Milotic's Yachi Berry, we're able to shrug off the incoming Ice Punch, and then retaliate with an Earth Power, who's just shy of taking out the Electivire. I don't think I'm able to live another Ice Punch without my Yachi Berry, so I decided to swap into Urshifu, who can resist the incoming Ice Punch, and then revenge kill with an Aqua Jet. This for some reason makes Darmanitan comes in, and we're able to outspeed and just take it out with 1 Surging Strikes. I don't really know what the AI was thinking there, but hey. Oh wait, that was his last Pokemon. That explains a lot. Even though we lost a Pokemon, that battle felt very, very easy. We can now head on over to Route 23, where each of our badges will get checked. The first badge to get checked is the Boulder Badge, then the Cascade Badge, the Thunder Badge, the Rainbow Badge, the Marsh Badge, the Volcano Badge, and last but not least, the Rising Badge. And that's all of them. Just before I'm able to enter the Victory Road, we get stopped by a familiar face. And it's Brendan, who wants one last battle. Of course he does. Brendan's team here is filled with legendary Pokemon, but luckily we've came prepared. Brendan leads off with Deoxys attack, but that's no match for Mimikyu. We're able to take it down to its Focus Sash and then finish it off with a Shadow Sneak. Brendan then sends out his super gimmicky Jirachi, who is holding a Choice Scarf, making it super fast. It also has the ability Serene Grace, making its Iron Head a 60% chance of flinching. When Jirachi's Iron Head does very little damage, I predict that it's going to swap out, and Landorus takes a 50% from our Flash Cannon. I swap into Goodra, who's able to take 2 Earth Powers and then take out Landorus with an Ice Beam. Jirachi then comes back out, so I once again go into Magnezone. I don't know if he's going to swap out again, but I decided to play it safe and set up a Reflect, because the remainder of Brendan's Pokemon are all physical attackers. As his Galarian Zapdos comes in, I know there's a fighting type move coming, so this is a free swap in for his Hisuian Typhlosion, who's immune. And as a thanks to Zapdos' item being a Choice Band, we don't risk getting hit at all. I decide to play safe in case he swaps out and go for a Will-O-Wisp, burning to Zapdos. But instead he swaps out the turn after that, bringing out his Huntail. That's very interesting. And this is a Shell Smash White Herb Huntail, but we get a super lucky special defense drop from Shadow Ball, which uses up its White Herb. I'm not afraid of this thing at all anymore, as I even take a turn to burn the Huntail with a Will-O-Wisp. Huntail then uses a Shell Smash, but thanks to its White Herb being gone, its defenses are still lowered. So I swap into Rillaboom, who's able to take out Huntail with a priority Grassy Glide. Typhlosion definitely putting in a lot of work for this battle. Jirachi then comes back out, and oh boy, this thing does not want to die. So we go into our Magnezone once again. As it decides to lock itself into Zen Headbutt this time, we go for a Reflect. But we get flinched. Of course we do. And then we get flinched again. Man, being on the receiving end of Serene Grace is not fun at all. Luckily, on our third try of using Reflect, we don't get flinched and we actually do get it up. As I then want to use a Thunder Wave, paralyzing Jirachi, but we once again get flinched. We then try again, but get flinched once more. But finally, we're able to paralyze the Jirachi. Of course, he's still faster than us, but luckily we don't get flinched and we're able to get off a massive Thunderbolt. As our Reflect wears off, we set up another one and Brendan sends out his Sceptile. So we go into Incineroar, who's able to lower Sceptile's attack by 1 stage thanks to Intimidate. We do some chip damage with Fake Out as Sceptile has set up a Sword Stance. We then get hit by Skill Shot, but thanks to our Reflect, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. We then proceed to take out Sceptile with an Outrage. Sadly, Outrage locks us into this move as Jirachi comes out once again. But luckily, Jirachi just U-turns out. Galarian Zapdos then comes back in, and at the time I wasn't sure whether there was a flying or a fighting type move come in, but looking back, it was pretty obvious. So I do something very stupid. I go into Magnezone, who, thanks to Zapdos being burned and the Reflect being up, is able to live a close combat. Poof. We can then go into the Pokemon I actually should have gone into, which is a Hisuian Typhlosion, and take it out with a Shadow Ball. Man, that was lucky. We could have actually lost Magnezone there. It's just Jirachi left, who also falls to a Shadow Ball. And as a reward for beating Brendan one final time, he gives us a Destiny Knot. We can now continue our journey, making our way to the Elite Four and actually enter the Victory Road. As Brendan says, so long, friend. But it's not over yet. We still have some encounters to get, and on Route 23, we encounter a Piloswine. We catch it and name it Iceland. Inside of Victory Road itself, we encounter a Corviknight, which could be a very useful Pokemon for the Elite Four. But we capture it and name it Greenland, which technically isn't a country, I know, but shut up. Before we enter the Victory Road, we fly on over to the power plant where we can get two encounters. A Arctivish and a static encounter, which turns out to be an Oshawott. They're both pretty cool. We then head on over to Victory Road, which is long and filled with a bunch of trainers, and they're all kind of like mini gym leaders because they all specialize in either a type or a theme of Pokemon, and they all have a Pokemon that can Mega Evolve as well. I'm not going to go in and show the trainer battles we find in Victory Road because this video is already long enough, and most of them were quite easy. They tried to have some sort of gimmick to them, but they were all quite easy to deal with. After Victory Road, and just as we're about to enter the Elite Four building, we're met by the creator of this ROM hack, who has a gimmicky team with an exploding Gigalith and 5 Shinichas. Our Ghost type Mimikyu is easily able to deal with this battle, and we don't even break a sweat. We're then able to enter the Elite Four building and talk to the guy left of the entrance to find out which lower light team we're fighting, and it turns out to be the Ice team. Not sure if that's better or worse than the Water team, but it's now time to prepare for our final challenge. It is now time. The final battles. I've spent way too long preparing a team for these battles, deciding nature and items, and calculating exactly every move that will take place during these 5 consecutive fights. It won't be easy, but I do believe with the team I've constructed, we can come out victorious. The team consists of Rillaboom, Hisuian Typhlosion, Toxapex, Tentacruel, Sevian Milotic, and Mega Metagross. We're gonna have to make some minor changes to the team in between certain fights to help us get the upper hand in those fights, but natures and egg moves and such cannot be changed. This is it. As we enter the first Elite Four room, I feel a chilling feeling. We're up against Lorelei, who this time brought her Ice team. This is a double battle, making sure every move is calculated here is crucial. She leads off with Slush Rush, Choice Scarfed Glaceon, and Alola Ninetales. I lead with Rillaboom and Choice Scarfed Hisuian Typhlosion. I fake out Glaceon, stopping it from doing anything, and then I use Eruption, taking out both Pokemon, turn 1. This stops Lorelei from setting up Aurora Veil, and that's 2 KOs in 1 turn, only 4 more to go. Huge power Assault Vest Azumarill then comes in, as well as Ice Rider Calyrex. We take a tiny amount of HP from the Hail, but are able to regain it thanks to the Grassy Train. We need to hit a range on Azumarill with a priority Grassy Glide. Luckily, we were able to hit that range and Azumarill faints. Now that Calyrex is alone on the field, Eruption doesn't count as a spread move and is able to deal more damage to the Calyrex. So hitting that range on Azumarill was very crucial. Otherwise, Eruption wouldn't have been strong enough to take out Calyrex. We've now taken out 4 out of Lorelei's Pokemon in just 2 turns. After Calyrex finally falls, she sends out her Rotom Wash and her Abomasnow. Her Mega Abomasnow. We've equipped Rillaboom with a Yache Berry, assuring that Abomasnow is never going to go for Blizzard, which would otherwise take out Rillaboom. It instead uses a Hidden Power Fire, which deals around 50%. We take out Rotom Wash with 1 more priority Grass Glide, and its Abomasnow falls to the 4 times effective single target Eruption. And that's Lorelei. In just 3 turns, we were able to defeat her. As I stated earlier, I'm really not a fan of double battles, so I'm very happy it went this smoothly. Our next battle is up against Bruno, and we have to just make one minor change. Swap out Rillaboom's Yache Berry for a Muscle Band, which will help us ensure some kills. Bruno's battle is definitely the longest, as I have to really maneuver around his Zacian, but other than that, his team is pretty straightforward. Bruno starts the battle off with his water fighting type Urshifu, and we know just how powerful this Pokemon can be. Although it's no match for Rillaboom, who easily takes it out with a Fake Out and a priority Grassy Glide. Or at least my Calyx said we should, but Urshifu somehow lives on just 1 HP, and is able to deal a lot of damage with close combat. Uh-oh, I had not at all calculated for this, but it's fine. We regain a little bit of health, and then we take out Urshifu. As Scissor then comes out, we can swap into Choice Scarf to Hisuian Typhlosion, who can tank all of Scissor's moves. As we swap out, Scissor uses a Sword Stance, and even though we're Choice Scarf, we're sadly not faster than a priority Bullet Punch, and we take a lot of HP. Scissor then proceeds to fall to the 4 times effective Flamethrower, as Choice Scarf Terrakion then comes in, and the AI sees a kill with 2 moves, Stone Edge and Earthquake. But I do think that swapping into Rillaboom is the safest option here, and it absolutely was. We eat the critical hit Earthquake, and I plan to retaliate with a Grassy Glide. As he swaps out and into Conkeldurr, who takes a lot of damage from the critical hit Grassy Glide, and then proceeds to fall to a second Grassy Glide. Bruno's scariest Pokemon, Zacian, then comes in, and I have a very weird way of dealing with this thing. It involves Toxapex. The strategy is quite simple, but a bit of an annoyance. It requires us to use Haze, which removes all stat changes, including the +1 in attack Zacian gets every time it swaps in. And Haze is also there in case it decides to set up with a Sword Stance. Staying healthy to avoid critical hits here is also crucial. So we've equipped Toxapex with a Black Sludge, which heals poison types for a lot of HP at the end of every turn. Pair that with Recover, and we can basically stall Zacian out of PP. And whenever I see a opportunity present itself, I use a Scald, hoping for a burn. As Zacian then decides he's had enough, he swaps into Lucario, but this allows us to freely swap into Typhlosion, who can take out Lucario with a Flamethrower. But not before Terrakion swaps in, and we have to go into Rillaboom once again. We take very little damage from Earthquake, and then we proceed to use a Grassy Glide, but he swaps back into Zacian. So we go back into Toxapex, starting this whole thing all over again. I realize now that I really should have been counting PP, because I think it would have helped me and made this battle a lot easier. But it's okay. As Toxapex gets hit by a Crunch, this time lowering its defense. This is looking really bad. We use a Scald, and we do get the lucky burn. Wow. This changes the pacing completely in the battle, as I'm always able to haze myself to get rid of my own defense drops. With continuing to spam Haze, Heal, and Protect, Zacian then decides he's had enough once again, and goes straight back into Terrakion. So we also decide to swap back out into Rillaboom, who can eat the incoming Earthquake once again. This time I've learned something though. I know he's going to swap out, so I used Earthquake. But out comes Lucario? I was not expecting that. But Lucario takes a lot of damage from the Earthquake, and we go out to his suit in Typhlosion once again. And oh god, of course he swaps back into Terrakion as we use Flamethrower. Luckily, we were able to get a burn though. The burn makes Stone Edge a lot more bearable, as I don't take a lot of damage. Terrakion then finally accepts its fate and goes down to an Earthquake. As Lucario then comes out one final time, we can go into Typhlosion, who can take out Lucario with a Flamethrower. Bruno is now down to his last Pokemon, his annoying Zacian, who's still burned. But Zacian coming out means that we can one last time go into Toxapex. So after one Haze, some recovering, and a lot of Scalding, Zacian finally falls. This was definitely one of the hardest Pokemon to deal with in this entire game. We've now defeated 2 out of the 4 Elite Four members, and next up is Agatha. Agatha's theme is filled with Ghost and Dark types, who can all be pretty troublesome to deal with. At least for this next battle, we don't have to make any changes for our team, we can just go in. Although we were able to deal with Lorelei in just 3 turns, I think that Agatha might be a little easier than her. The most important team member for this battle is going to be Sylvie and Milotic, who hasn't really had a chance to shine yet, but who can put in a lot of work in this battle thanks to its special defense. The battle starts and Agatha leads with her Zoroark. It has the ability Illusion, which makes it look like a Gengar, but we are able to break the illusion with Fake Out and then proceed to take down Zoroark with a priority Grassy Glide. As Agatha swaps in her real Gengar, her Mega Gengar, I go into Hisuian Typhlosion on her Sludge Wave. And the reason I went into Typhlosion instead of Metagross, who's immune, is thanks to Mega Gengar's ability Shadow Tag, which makes us not be able to swap out. And because we're once again Choice Scarfed, we can outspeed and take out Gengar with a critical hit, Shadow Ball. That critical hit definitely made a difference. Silvally Duck then comes out, and this is an easy matchup for Sylvie and Milotic. Milotic is of course immune to Thunder Wave, and we don't really take a lot of damage from multi-attack, which means we don't have to worry about a critical hit either. Multi-attack is a really cool physical damaging move, which changes typing depending on the Pokemon that uses it typing, making it a dark type attack here, which Milotic of course resists. But using Moonblast and Shore Up to stay healthy assures that Silvally goes down with ease. Agatha then sends out her Choice Guard Spectrier, which we can just do the same thing we did to Silvally, use some Moonblasts, maybe even get a special attack drop every now and then, and heal up with Shore Up, which guarantees us taking down this Ghost Horse too. After using Sylvie and Milotic a lot during this game, I really appreciate how well it fit onto this team, and how it proves that it does that during this fight. This is one of my absolute favorites in this game. But after a long while, Spectre finally does go down and Milotic is still looking pretty healthy. Agatha then sends out her Aegislash and I go into Metagross on the Toxic, who's immune. I then predict a Shadow Ball, so I go into Rillaboom, who can tank that pretty well. I want to knock off its leftovers to stop it from regenerating so much health. But I assume that he's going to protect this turn, so I use an Earthquake to not make contact and lower my own attack. But he for some reason decides to stay in Blade form and use a Toxic. Earthquake is just shy of taking out Aegislash, and it sadly lives. After seeing the damage that Earthquake did, I know that he's not going to want to risk that again, and there's definitely a King Shield coming. So I see this as an opportunity to save my Rillaboom's HP a little and go into Typhlosion. Aegislash then decides to go for a King Shield again and gets very lucky and doesn't fail to double protect. But this Sword and Shield is done for, as the turn after that it goes down to an Eruption. Agatha's last Pokemon then comes in, Marshadow. And this is an easy 1v1 for Milotic. As I get hit by a Spectral Thief, it does a lot of damage. And I don't want to risk dying to a Shadow Sneak, so I decided to swap back out into Rillaboom. But Rillaboom also takes a lot of damage from Spectral Thief, and I have to swap out one more time, this time into Toxapex. Toxapex doesn't take a whole lot of damage from the incoming Shadow Sneak, and is also able to regain a lot of it thanks to the Grassy Terrain and its Black Sludge. As Marshadow decides to set up with Bulk Up, we use a Scald, and this time also getting a very, very lucky burn. I use a Haze to get rid of its stat changes as we take a very weak Spectral Thief. I predict that Marshadow is going to bulk up one more time, so I swap into Milotic, who should be able to live a hit thanks to the burn. I use a Shore Up to heal some damage off as Marshadow uses another bulk up, but then proceeds to fall to a Moonblast. And that's it. We beat Agatha, and we only have one more Elite 4 member left, and that's Lance with his Dragons. There's a lot of changes that need to be made to the team for the next battle, and they are give Tentacruel a Shuka Berry, give Rillaboom the leftovers, teach Tentacruel Blizzard instead of Ice Beam, and teach Metagross Earthquake, teach Toxapex Ice Beam, and give it a Shuka Berry. That's all of them. We're now ready for Lance. It's time for the final Elite 4 member, Lance, and this battle is no joke. We need a lot of things to go right during this fight, or else it could be over. He leads with Garchomp, who sets up Stealth Rocks, and I get rid of them immediately with Rapid Spin, and also raising my speed by 1 stage. I predict that he's going to swap out, as I use Scald, and we get a third very lucky burn on the Melmetal. I now know there's a Thunder Punch coming, so I swap out to Milotic, who thanks to its Barbary Berry, can now live even a double Iron Bash. We outspeed and take on Melmetal with just 2 Earth Powers. Lance then goes into his Dragonite, who wants to finish off my Milotic, and there's a 50-50 chance of him going either for Earthquake or Dual Wing Beat. We get quite unlucky, as we swap into Toxapex, it uses Earthquake, using up my Shuka Berry. Luckily, we're able to live another Earthquake, and we can break Dragonite's Multiscale with a nice beam. But then we gotta swap out. We go into Rillaboom as Dragonite uses Extreme Speed. Rillaboom can then deal some chip damage thanks to Fake Out, and Rillaboom being out baits Dragonite into using Dual Wing Beat, which Tentacruel can take. So we swap into Tentacruel, who can easily outspeed and take out Dragonite with a Blizzard. And then sends out kind of a strange Pokemon. It's Dialga, but not a normal Dialga. It's Primal Dialga. Yeah, like the one from the Mystery Dungeon games, which, by the way, are incredible games, and definitely give them a try if you haven't. Primal Dialga has insanely buff stats, and a very good ability in Primal Armor. Luckily, we have Savine Milotic, who's just a perfect counter for this Pokemon. With Milotic's insanely high special defense, and being immune to one of Dialga's 2 attacking moves, it's just so good here. We can continuously spam Moonblast to lower its special attack, and Earth Power to lower its special defense, and then Shore Up to heal ourselves every now and then. Dialga does have access to Rest, which also means it can heal itself, but if we keep on using Earth Power, and thanks to Serene Grace, we should be able to lower its defenses enough to win against Dialga. Garchomp then comes back out, who sets up Stealth Rock, and sadly this time I don't have a way of getting rid of them, but that should be okay. We can use the Moonblast, which puts Garchomp in the red. We are then able to live an Earthquake, and we can take out Garchomp with a second Moonblast. Dracozolt then comes out, so I go into Rillaboom on the Earthquake, which does very little damage. This Dracozolt is now locked in into using Earthquake thanks to his Choice Scarf, and I predict that he's going to swap out. I get a little bit of damage with Knockoff onto the incoming Salamence. I'm predicting a Flying type Double Edge coming here, so I go into Metagross. It's a clash between the 2 Mega Forms of the 2 suited legendary Pokemon from Hoenn, as Metagross gets super unlucky and gets flinched from Salamence's Fire Fang. I decide to risk this and stay in, as we live with just 21 HP from the next Fire Fang. We get a super clutch attack boost from Meteor Mash, which means the next turn we can take out Salamence with a priority Bullet Punch. As Lances then sends out his last Pokemon, Dracozolt, so I go into Rillaboom expecting an Earthquake, but it turns out to be a Bolt Beak, which means Dracozolt is now locked into this move. So we can go into Milotic, who is immune to Bolt Beak and will never take any damage from it. Milotic can now safely take out Lance's last Pokemon, which means we've beaten all of the Elite 4 members without losing a single Mon. This is going a lot better than I had thought. Lance tells us that we are the champion of the Pokemon League, or at least we could be. There's one last challenge standing in our way to become the very best, and that person is Fart, our rival. He's a champion, and we need to take him down. We make one minor adjustment to our team, which is giving Rillaboom a normal gem, and also teaching it the move Acrobatics instead of Knockoff. Alright, we're now ready for the champion battle. As our rival Fart leads with a Focus Sash Pheromosa, we can deal a lot of damage thanks to our normal gem boosted Fake Out. We're able to live a triple axle on just 41 HP, and then we can retaliate with Acrobatics, which has doubled in power thanks to us using up our item. Yveltal then comes out, so we go into our trusty Milotic. Milotic should be able to wall Yveltal pretty easily thanks to its good typing and high special defense. We use the Moonblast, which deals a little bit of damage to the Yveltal as we get hit by an Oblivion Wing. We take a turn to heal with Shore Up as we get hit by another Oblivion Wing, but on our second Moonblast we get a special attack drop. The AI is not a fan of stat drops and tends to swap out if another one of his Pokemon has a good matchup. I read this, and as Yveltal swaps into Groudon, I use an Earth Power, which deals a lot of damage and even gets a special defense drop. Thanks to Primal Groudon's ability Desolate Land, which summons Sun, I think Milotic is dead to a Fire Punch, but because this is the last and final battle, we're free to stack Pokemon left and right. So I decided to go into Rillaboom, who sadly goes down to the incoming Fire Punch. Rillaboom was an absolute god during the Elite Four battles, and his sacrifice allows Typhlosion, who's still holding the Choice Scarf, to come in, outspeed, and clean up Groudon with a Shadow Ball. Half HP Yveltal then comes back in, so we go straight into Milotic. I decided to play it very safe here and heal up all the way up to full HP, thanks to Shore Up, as Yveltal continues to use Oblivion Wing. We cycle through healing and using Boom Blasts. We get hit by not one, but 2 critical hits, but Milotic kind of just shrugs them off. And as we get another special attack drop, I'm debating whether or not he's going to swap out again. He does swap out to his Metagross as I use a Shore Up, getting me all the way back up to full HP again. I know there's a Steel type move coming, but I'm debating whether or not it's worth staying in. But then I remember I still have Choice Scarf Typhlosion, who resists Steel type moves. But as Typhlosion gets hit by the Meteor Mash, Metagross gets an attack boost. Typhlosion is then just shy of taking out Metagross, as Typhlosion then 2 falls to a Zen Headbutt. After Typhlosion falls, I go into my own Mega Metagross, and I was thinking if Bullet Punch was enough to take out the enemy Metagross. Going back and actually calculating that, I found out that it was. But our Metagross steps up and lives a +1 Fire Punch, and then takes out Fart's Mega Metagross with a Power Up Punch. Good job. As Yveltal comes back out, we too take that out with a Bullet Punch from Metagross, even though it's burned. As Eternatus then comes out, I decide to stay in and get a little bit of chip damage with Bullet Punch, but Metagross also goes down. We can then send in our specially defensive Milotic, who doesn't take too much damage from the Sludge Bomb, but sadly does get poisoned. Milotic then deals a big chunk of damage to Eternatus with its Earth Power. Milotic is able to live another Sludge Bomb, and then proceeds to take out Eternatus. Our rival is now down to his last Pokemon, Ditto. As Ditto comes in and copies my ground Fairy type Milotic, and then outspeeds and takes me out, I know it's over. We have 2 bulky water types left, and Fart can't do too much. Eventually his last Pokemon faints, and we win. We did it. We beat the game. One of the hardest ROM hacks out there, completed. As we go to submit our team to the Hall of Fame, I just want to say what a blast I had playing through this game. I really enjoy how they've changed a lot of Pokemon that aren't usually too good by giving them moves, abilities, some stat changes, or even type changes to make more Pokemon viable. Having more variety in a Pokemon game is always more fun, and this game does that super well. I've also really enjoyed coming up with strategies and problem solving for a lot of the fights. It's one of my absolute favorite things about Pokemon, and this game really challenges your creativity. A lot of fights require you thinking outside the box to beat them, and I think that just makes the game super fun. But hey, if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment about what you liked in the video. If you want to play through this game for yourself, there will be a link in the description. I really recommend it as I had a ton of fun. I'll definitely be playing through this game again once it gets updated with Generation 9 stuff over on my Twitch channel, which you can also of course find in the description. I go live almost every single day with some Pokemon and a lot of other content, so make sure you follow me there. And if you want to see more videos like this, leave a like, and I'll try my best to make videos of other difficulty ROM hacks again in the future. Peace!